I play against theoretically stronger players than myself all the time. Like it's not my full-time thing, but I still like to compete. So I got to find innovative ways of staying competitive. One of those is, what are they not paying attention to? Bill over here is fucking stupid. He still haven't gotten his coffee. In his mind, he's like, if I don't get my coffee, I'm gonna shove any two.
Today, we will be chatting with high-stakes MTT player and entrepreneur Anton Wigg. Anton has been around in poker for over 17 years and contributes his longevity to a never-ending curiosity towards improving and performance.
I would leverage AI in my quest for becoming a better and more independent learner. Use the minimum amount of resources to get the maximum amount of output or result. That's of course gonna be natural selection. And I think we're already seeing that. If you would like map out the poker ecosystem and see who's winning and who's losing and why, and like do a deeper dive analysis there, you're probably going to realize that the people that are more curious, more action oriented, more solutions oriented. Maybe solutions oriented is better than action oriented. Like they're more solutions oriented and then like they take action. They're going to be the big winners in the pool. And when I realized that, oh my God, like I have an infinite pool almost of highly interesting people, and every day is kind of like this raffle. Like, who am I gonna get today? What I'm hearing is like, I don't find it intellectually stimulating to beat a player that's worse than I. And I said, I should be so pissed right now because everything is going to shit. And I should go punch that punching bag. And the punching bag was looking back at me and saying like, yeah, but you don't got shit.
Thank you guys for tuning in to what's going to be another great episode of the Mechanics of Poker podcast. Quick announcement, we have seats open for our Mechanics of Poker coaching program. If you want to work with me and Adam and have us help you make more progress in your poker career, you can apply using the link down below or go over to mechanicsofpoker.com. Without further ado, guys, enjoy this episode. All right, Anton, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks, bud.
Anton, I saw PokerStars gave you the nickname the Poker Terminator. I was wondering if that sticked, or is there another nickname you go by, or can we just call you Anton?
I mean, like it kind of works, right? I think it's like too long to be an actual nickname for like a pet name. But my assistants, they built my second brain and they put up the PokerStars video of me as the Terminator. So they are trying to turn me into a cyborg.
I do really like it. That has to be said. Like, especially in the clip, how they made you look. It really looked like a cyborg, you know? Got some Arnold Schwarzenegger vibes going on there. Anton, I was digging into your story, and a few things stood out to me straight away. You started playing poker at just 15 years old. You know, not the age that most people start. Before that, you were already quite a competitor as well. I saw you played ice hockey, football, and even were competitive in chess. We're going to dive in all of that. But before that, I'd actually like to start with your education. Because instead of following the mainstream educational system, you were taught in a Waldorf school, which follows the educational philosophy of Rudolf Steiner. For those who are unfamiliar, this system emphasizes on creativity, holistic development, and experimental learning over traditional academic structures. Could you maybe give us some insights into how that kind of education shaped you, and more specifically, how it's influenced the way you approach poker?
Yeah, that was nice. Yeah, number one, you did your homework, I see, so that's cool. Yeah, so I think they got me early, which is good. I think it's as a kid you just do stuff. You just like go about your life and nothing really is, you don't understand how different it might be. But then as I grew up, I started realizing that my friends from other schools, they were thinking differently. I think that was the big kind of like aha moment for me. And in the beginning, when you're a kid, that's not what you want, right? Like you're like, I'm different. Like, how am I going to fit in? But as the years have passed, I have a large enough body of evidence to see that the people that I used to go to school with as well, that they do, I would say on average, more creative jobs, that they're more free thinkers. And and that they kind of define success in a different way than the traditional kind of system would quantify that. So I think that's a good introduction to education. And then there are things that are amazing with that kind of education, just as in regular education as well. So I think it has some pros and cons. Yeah, that's my experience of being a Waldorf child.
Yeah, how old were you like in this period?
So my parents actually moved to this place, Järna in Sweden, where they have a large community. So they moved there when I was one year, and then they put me in regular preschool. I went there until I was 6 years old, and then in when you're 6, we do like preschool. So that's when I got started, and my experience coming from the regular system to the Waldorf system was I went to this preschool. This was my first day at preschool. And I'm there with my parents, and it's all, I'm wandering around, I'm touching the stuff, I'm seeing how it is. And at some point, I pull my parents aside. Like I literally pull them in under this like spiral staircase. So I'm there, like 6-year-old me. And I'm just like pulling like, mom, dad, come here. Like they lean in under this staircase, and I say, this is a really poor kindergarten, isn't it? Like they don't have any real toys. Like everything is like wood. So that was my perception, and I think it took me a while to kind of get used to not having plastic toys and not having the same thing as I was used to. And I think I have that also perspective of going back and forth. I only went to Waldorf school for 9 years, and then I went back to the traditional education system where I took business football for soccer for 3 years, for American listeners, actually football. So yeah, I studied football for 3 years. So I got a little bit of both, like popping back and forth and seeing what I like and what I don't like and what I could take from it and what I can give back as well, of course.
You mentioned that you noticed that you were thinking different from the other kids, and even later in life you see that around you with the kids you went to that school with, that they have a different way of viewing life, right? They got attracted to different type of jobs. How do you think, or what kind of impact did it have on poker if you compare how you think about poker or think about poker strategy or studying poker compared to your peers?
Let me go back one step first, and then we'll get to the second part of that question. So I think how we got to learn was very hands-on, right? Like it's not, here is a candle, light it and let it burn. Here's how you make a candle so that you know the components of it. Like here, or a better example might be, instead of here's a book, you should read it and learn from it. It's like, here's a story, here's a crate, here's a paper. Now follow along and create your own story. Right? Like, so I think that's the big shift. It's more like turning you into the narrator instead of just the recipient of information. Or, like if you want to work with your hands, do that practically speaking and learn by doing instead of like, becoming an engineer and working in theory, perhaps. You start with the hands-on part of that process, and then you move to the more theoretical side, which I think is pretty fun. It's a pretty big shift fundamentally, right? So I think that's like the introduction. And if you could repeat the actual question, so I'll get in line with what the question was.
How you noticed that this was different in poker compared to like your other colleagues?
Right. So for the other side, from the poker perspective, I think the best way to put it is in systems thinking terms. When I think about poker, I think about what I think is a very good way of starting anything is first principles. Like, it's kind of overused and tossed around. Everyone is talking about first principles, this and that, but fundamentally, it's just like that is the number one thing that you do to start something. For those who are not familiar, systems thinking in a very like small nutshell is to use the minimum amount of resources to get the maximum amount of output or result. So then what I try to do from a systems thinking point of view is to then think laterally. Right? Like, you're thinking that you could solve a problem, but if you're only stuck in the past and taking up old ideas and try to solve it from that perspective, you're limiting your imagination. So, I mean, you can take an example like something very present is robotics. So, like, if you would train a robot, you would have to do it previously, you would have to do it in physical reality because we didn't have strong enough tools to model the laws of physics, which is going back to first principles. It's like a very fundamental thing. You can't, that's the only law that you can't break. You have to abide by physics. But now that you can simulate that accurately in a digital environment, what you can then do is you can run infinite simulations. You can train your robot so when it comes off the production line in physical reality, it's already pre-trained to do all those things. And I think that's like the coolest thing ever. Like, every time I think about how profoundly epic that is, I think about, number one, like, that's super, super cool. And it pushes progress fast forward in a really like super speed way. And for those who watch Westworld, there's a little nugget in there for you as well. If you finish the 5 seasons of Westworld, it's like one of the shows I rate the highest ever. That it has to do with the nature of reality and how we're creating these digital environments now that we never had access to. And that's a big shift that I think people are really people are just getting used to it.
You mentioned these systems are built around wasting the minimum amount of energy to get the maximum amount of output, or like the maximum results. If you put that in like poker terms, could you maybe give an example of that?
That's a good question. I think a good way of putting it would be, I think people think about this from a perspective of what should I study? There's a heat, like, you can create a heat map of the most common spots that you play most often, and then you drill those. I think that's a good way of thinking about poker. But I think the bigger picture, if I would think about it from a first principle point of view, is that I'm going to be there and I'm going to execute, and I need to execute consistently over a long period of time. So now the bigger cost could be, how do I retain this knowledge as fast and drill and retain this knowledge as fast as possible so I don't lose it, right? Like, because the aim here is maximum output, right? Like, you want to be able to execute this thing over and over again. You might want to have a system in place as well that kind of like checks that and has a look into, are trends changing? Do I need to make adjustments in my strategy? Is that something that needs to happen? Because if not, you're executing a faulty strategy. But the retention side, I mean, unless you're programming a bot, the bot will always execute perfectly, given the parameters you give it. But as a human, we have a tendency to just forget information. And so from a first principles point of view, it would be like, how can I study the right things? How can I use the minimum amount of time and resources to craft the best type of strategies to exploit, the general population, and then exploit different types of opponents? Then how do I simulate that in such a way that I can train myself to execute it, and then make sure that I don't forget it so that I can safely move on to the next thing, and kind of keep building my performance in that way.
And that circle kind of repeats itself with every spot. Do you have maybe any I know that this is a very big issue a lot of people have, right? We can study a lot and we take a lot of notes, we gather all this info, right? But we kind of fail to put it together in a way that we can actually memorize this knowledge, right? Something that you mentioned. Do you maybe have some tips for our audience on how to better retain the knowledge of like the things that you've studied? Maybe something that you've experimented with over your career?
Yeah, of course. I mean, like, I will do one better. I will give people the tools that they can access to so that they can search for this information themselves. I think that's just like, I mean, my job, like, just also as an introduction, I'm an entrepreneur, and what we as entrepreneurs try to do is solve people's problems. And my way of approaching that is giving people access to tools, systems, solutions that I want for them to practically use to kind of solve problems for themselves. I think that's a biggest gift that I can provide. So how I would go about looking into this is I would leverage AI. Like, I would leverage AI in my quest for becoming a better and more independent learner. And how would I do that? Well, I'd probably start in an app like Perplexity. I think it's an excellent, like, very lightweight tool to ask relevant questions. I don't know if you're familiar with what Perplexity is.
No, I was going to say, could you maybe elaborate, like, what it does? I know ChatGPT, but further than that...
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, like, don't worry, I'm not sponsored by Perplexity. I'm just powered by Perplexity, but I love this tool. I think it's something that I use on a daily basis. So Perplexity is, I guess, for context, like, think about it as a comparison to Google search engine. So like Google search engine, you enter a query, you get a result, there's some ads, whatever, right? Like, the way Perplexity is designed is that instead of being a search engine, it's an answer engine. So you insert your question and it will spit out an answer, and this answer is based on the most relevant information. So it's like sourcing all the different, it's like finding all the different sources on the internet, and then it's categorizing that and giving you the best source of information. What you can then do is subcategorize, like, do I want to see this as an academic paper? Do I want to see it from social media? Because, you might want to source your answers. If you want to find a underground club in Berlin, you might not want to go to like the academic side of things. Like, you want to actually find like some blogs and places where people are writing about their experiences. Then that's one side. What it also does is it gives you a set of follow-up questions. So it acts as a co-pilot where it tells you, maybe your first question wasn't the actual question you wanted to ask. Pretty common. We have my question wasn't really sharp enough to hit the point. The co-pilot is there to kind of guide you into asking, here are 5 follow-ups that would be the most relevant follow-ups to your question. So it's kind of like, was this what you meant? Was this what you meant? Was this what you meant? And that's also a superpower, because now you can do this like 80-20, 80-20, 80-20, like start with silly question and then end up with like profound insight in less than 5 minutes. So I think like that's also, I'm a big advocate for these things because I think they're very educational. I think like knowledge and curiosity are these things that go hand in hand. And once you can use modern technology and kind of summon knowledge at your fingertips, I think that's epic. There's a pro feature as well where, say, you would be listening to this conversation and I say something like systems thinking and first principles. You don't know what it is. What you can do is you can say, hey, tell me about systems thinking. Tell me about first principles. Tell me about lateral thinking. And what it will do is it will source that. It will give you a short explanation. And in the pro feature, you can press convert into page, which turns it into a presentation. So you now have a live web page of all the things that we talked about. And you can think the use cases for, say, academia. You're in a class and you want to like know what the professor is talking about, but you're there and it's kind of abstract. You can listen to this guy and some guy sent you a meme, like now you have your keynotes and you don't have to go to a smart person in the class. Like it's always like kind of embarrassing, like, hey, could I get your notes? Because I wasn't really like that good at taking them down. Now you have your own assistant there that will help you to craft presentations, which goes back to the memory aspect of things, right? Like now you can start retaining things because you can ping that presentation off of the actual information, which means that your short-term memory then like logs it faster and goes into your memory bank. You can also take that presentation, of course, export it. So we're staying on point. You can export it into, the old school tool would be Anki. But now, like, how can you find a Anki-like tool that helps doing this more efficiently? So like we're also sticking to first principles. Like, how can I use, like, what would be my process of taking like my poker study and then extrapolating what I need and then exporting those automatically? Can I set up an automation maybe, right? Like, is that a thing that would actually take me a lot of time that I don't need to do as a human, so that I can get my deck prepared faster, so I can study faster, so I can retain information faster, so I can focus on, maybe refining work elsewhere, looking into a mass database analysis trend over there. But like we find ourselves constantly distracted. And I'm the same. I don't trust my brain. Right? Like my brain is just like, ooh, shiny object. And I'm just like, well, I guess we got to go look at the shiny object. And then like 3 hours later, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think that's also like quite a significant cost. So, my advice to everyone is go find out. You don't need even like a non-formal education. As long as you have access to a cell phone and a solid internet line, you can essentially do anything you want.
So basically, we shouldn't ask Anton, but we should ask Perplexity. That's kind of the conclusion.
That's the hashtag, ask Perplexity.
To be fair, I do find myself nowadays, I might ask something or something to someone like, oh, wait, I can just ask anything to AI, right? Because it will give me usually the best answers. I assume that you're going to be first in line to let yourself get chipped AI by a Neuralink of Elon Musk. Like, yeah, take that part of my brain out. I don't trust my brain. Put a little AI chip in there.
Actually, I'll go with the other. I will actually challenge two things that you said. I will challenge the first thing is, from a point of view of learning and learning new information, I think it's largely depends on what kind of personality you are. For me, I really, really it fires me up working with people, talking to people, learning from people. And I'm like extremely extroverted as a person. That gives me a lot of energy. So I think that's the first thing to like ask yourself, like what gets me motivated and what gets me fired up, because you're going to be a much better learner. Like think about having that boring class and you're sitting at the back of the classroom chewing your chewing gum, and like, how much did you learn from any of those classes? I can't recite one single thing versus that class you have with that amazing English teacher that I still remember her name. And she just like got me so fired up about English that I'm still on that learning path. So I think that there's a big question to ask yourself as a human, like what is my preference and where do I find my edge and what I want, what creates value for me? Like, value is not, as much as you would think it's money when you need it, it's not it, right? Like science is very, very clear on that. Once you make enough money, you have to redefine that, because it's no longer your number one priority to put food on the table and have a nice place to live. Money is a tool at the end of the day. And that's a luxury for me to be able to say that. But I really want to make sure that I think there's a choice to be made, and I think it's for everyone. Like if you're more of an introverted person and that gives you more energy and more focus, I think you should go for it. I think you should just ask the AI and you can be there and converse with it. And it's going to be very like private and intimate. It's almost going to be like Her, for those who've seen that movie. So yeah, I think that's like the big caveat. Make it work for you. And then when it comes to the implant in the brain, I'm not going to lie. I was a little like intrigued. But I was also like equally scared. Like, I don't want to be hacked. Like, think about like I just think about outcomes. Like, my biggest fear, I think, like physical fear, would be to be tortured. Right? Like that would be like one of those things. And I don't know if you've seen Black Mirror, but like there's that episode where he gets into prison, and he gets to spend like an eternal time in his like private hell type of thing.
I think I missed that episode.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. But like now I imagine if someone could control me in that way, my actual like I wouldn't be a simulation. I would actually have to like have that felt experience. And that's a risk that I wouldn't be willing to take. Like I just like my I don't want to be Cypher in Matrix, right? Like I just like reality too much to ever have that being a negotiation for me. So I think that that would be a risk that I wouldn't take. And there's also now new tools. I saw this demo with Mark Zuckerberg, where he's kind of showing this new thing that you put it on your arm. It's like it looks like a wristband, like a pretty like robust wristband, like an Avengers type of thing. And the demo they had is that there's two people and they're sitting in a room and they're playing this like Sonic the Hedgehog type of game where your aim is to like, you're just going to go like left, right, left, right, left, right. And the thing is running forward fast in a straight line. And you're just trying to like dodge the things that you could run into. And you do that by kind of tilting your arm. So like that's how they started kind of like training this thing to see what are you doing? Like how does your brain work? Then there's an algorithmic layer that attaches to this process that through these like tiny nerve endings in your arm, it's starting to understand kind of like how you guide your decision-making process. And over time, it starts reading your mind, right? Like, so through your physical arm, I know I'm getting goosebumps every time I think about how big that innovation is, because now you don't have the problem anymore, right? Like if you match that with, say, I mean, AR glasses are still ugly and chunky, and we don't want to really have them. But like now you see the future where we're kind of in this future where you can have a hologram and you can do stuff with your arms. Right? It's like the sci-fi version of this. And to you, that's going to be your now augmented virtual / reality. And I think that also kind of shows you a little bit where we are in that process currently and why it's hard for people to get used to it, because they see it as sci-fi. But when you see that the tools are there and it works, it's not sci-fi anymore. And I think that's something that the sooner we get used to that and accept that fact, the more effective we can be in crafting solutions and staying ahead of the competition or building something innovative. Right? Like whatever it is that you want to do, you're not gonna, or get a job, like you're not gonna get a job at a construction company making a foundation for a house if you don't have a driver's license so you can drive a concrete truck. If you bring like a shovel to that meeting, they're just gonna say, I'm sorry, buddy, but like we can't hire you, right? And things have always evolved that way. This time is just bigger because it's in a different reality that we've created. And
and it will take probably a step, like go from the shovel to the machine was kind of something that you could see coming. But I feel like right now in the future, especially with AI, we have no fucking idea what like the next step is going to be. It's very hard to envision and therefore prepare for it. So basically in the near future, we might have this podcast hologram form, right? We're just all, surrounded by each other, all like hologram. I see like some get like some Star Wars pictures. I know, we start to talk a lot about AI. I know that you spend a lot of the time that you don't spend on poker, right? You spend a lot in AI. How do you see like AI's impact on the poker industry?
Oh, I will do my favorite thing, and I will first turn that question around to you. I'm not trying to evade answering this question quickly, but I think it's also interesting to hear someone else's point of view, because of course I have my kind of like hot take on this from the other side. But why I'm asking the question is because I haven't been that deeply integrated into poker in some time, because I've been busy building my company, like building my business and learning as much as I can, as fast as I can. So I think it's more interesting to hear kind of what your take off, and I'll see if I can ping off that conversation.
To be honest, I haven't given this too much thought, but in terms of how AI specifically applies to poker, but I would say if I just zoom out a bit further, just in general life, I feel like with AI, just like with all new technology, there's going to be pros and cons, and we're constantly going to be recalibrating, right? We went too far to the left, we over-applied things, then we go too far to the right. But I believe that, let's say, within 50 years from now, I think at the end, it will be for the better. Okay? I hope that AI... Like, the only thing that I'm concerned of, because, like, we don't really know what we truly want, right? What we think we want is not really what we want. So if AI starts to think that what we want is what we think we want, but it's actually not really what we want, he can steer us in the completely wrong direction, right? If you still follow what I mean.
Yeah. I hear you. But I think it's also, like, interesting for me to hear, like, if you would just pick one thing, like, how do you think it would be, changing your workflow, for instance, like how you operate with putting out content about, or like how you structure your study plan, like maybe, because not everyone is a content, like think about something that your audience would be doing, right? Like everyone has to study to improve their skills. So like, what part of your workflow do you find takes a lot of time, and where are the areas where you currently feel like you're not being very effective, but you think it would have a high alpha?
Well, I mean, I can already see that in my current workflow, right? With the limited tools, or at least with the versions of AI that's now publicly available, let's say, for example, ChatGPT, I can imagine that maybe 5 or 10 years from now, we look at ChatGPT now and we kind of laugh at it, right? Like, were that the tools we used to work with? But I already found it like working with it. There's no day goes by that I don't open it, that I don't use it. If sometimes it's down, I'm like, fuck, I cannot work, It's like, because, for example, with all content that I make, help, for example, preparing these type of podcasts, I just write down notes. I don't have to be accurate, because I know that afterwards I'm just going to throw it in ChatGPT and he will do the outlining for me, and then I will get it back, and then I will continue on that. I will send it back, and then it's a nice back and forth, right? So it's already helping me a lot as like, as how can I say it? Like basically a partner, right? That I get feedback for. I always ask for feedback, like, hey, what do you think of this? Hey, what do you think of that? And like lately, for example, if I look at my ChatGPT, I have a bunch of files and I've assigned it a bunch of roles. For example, I have a young daughter, 1.5 years old. I have a folder where I've put it together all the experts, okay, of people in babies and stuff. Gave him the role, gave him all the information, said, hey, I want you to take all the knowledge of these experts in these fields, because, these are the guys that I look up to. So when I have like, I don't know how to deal with the situation with my child, I go to it's called parenting panel, and I ask it there, right? And then he gives me like, from the philosophy of this specialist, they say you should take this approach. And then basically I now have that for everything. So for example, in our business, think marketing, sales, etc., I just have folders for everything, rules attached to everyone, copywriters. And I feel like it's a matter of the input that you give. For example, if I ask ChatGPT, what are poker players struggling with? The answer is going to be quite broad and vague. Whereas, for example, I have a lot of data. For example, people apply to our programs. They leave information about their struggles, their desires. So I can get a very narrow view of my specific niche. If I feed them that information, if I feed them all the information, say, hey, this is going to be your role. I'm going to now feed you all the information that you need to know of my customer. And you give him all this information. And then I ask him, can you maybe explain to me what my customer is? And then he explains it. And then from there, you're going to start asking him to help you with your sales page, help you with your marketing pitch. And it's not perfect. Like some people are a bit impatient, like, oh, shit, what I got. No, you have to take it. And they're like, I do like that. I'm going to take that and I'm going to, it will not give you the perfect answer straight away, but it's great for inspiration, right? It inspires me like, oh, interesting. I'm stuck here. Do you have some suggestions? And then it comes up with a couple of suggestions. For example, spoiler alert, later in the podcast, we do a little rapid fire. You just ask him, okay, we have these questions now. Adam made a list of questions that I like. They said, this is what we currently have. Have any suggestions for more? And then it just starts spitting out. And I'm not going to copy then. I'm going to use one. I'm like, oh, I like this. Maybe tweak it a bit with your own experience, So that's how I currently use AI. And I would imagine this only starts evolving. I mean, you don't have to make anything yourself anymore. You have to give a presentation. Well, there's probably an AI for presentation. There's AIs for everything nowadays.
Yeah. I mean, like, number one, I think you're absolutely right. I think number two, it's great to see that, you as a parent really take action into harnessing that kind of knowledge. I think that's what I want to ping off of. So like, when you care really deeply about something, you put your focus there and you want to make it the best possible. So one, using data and technology, you're not going to get away from one thing. It's called garbage in, garbage out. So I think the like real key here would be to get quality data, but then do what you said about your process, right? Like, you're still the subject matter expert. Like any kind of AI engine that you would build would need a lot of training in order to really understand what the objectives are. And from a first principles point of view, then, like, okay, build database, train model to understand exactly what the things are that I'm looking to achieve. And then from that, okay, so like, how can I both build an environment, how can I build an optimal learning environment based on that, if it's for personal use? And like, how can I build an optimal learning environment that's catered to me, that's fun, that's engaging, that gets me, that kind of like hits that sweet spot of getting me to fail about 15% of the time, because that's our optimal learning rate on average. Like, I say on average because all these kind of scientific numbers are always as a global average. Some people might need to fail 20% of the time in order to maximize their learning rate, and some people that might be 10% of the time. They need more encouragement, that type of thing. But just like having some kind of tailwind that's like forward force that puts you in that space that really works for you. I think that's really cool. But then I also wanted to touch on one thing that I think can be quite problematic, right? Like, I want to make an analogy that I think everyone can relate to. At least everyone that was born before the cell phone and before modern technology. So like, I used to drive around and I had to know where I was going. Right? Like, I had to know what the city looked like. I had to like constantly map that out in my mind. And the first time is kind of scary, right? Like, you're like on some road somewhere and you don't know where you're going, and you have to like pull up your map to do it. But the thing is, like, fear in that sense, it makes us pay attention, and paying attention is something that's very rewarding, because it gets our brain to actually work really well, unless it's like, your amygdala shuts down. It's not that type of fear that I'm talking about. I'm talking about like concern. Maybe it's a better way to put it. Puts us into like this action state. And the problem that we're running into by outsourcing all these things is we're actually putting ourselves more in a beta state, like you're just a passive observer. I mean, anything from consuming Netflix too late at night. Like, if you finish your day with watching Netflix, you had a long day at work, that's cool, right? Like we all have our day, and then we just want to kick it and have someone else like Peaky Blinders take away the show for us and watch them shoot each other up. That's not the problem. The problem is not that you don't have, like, you shouldn't allow yourself to chill. The problem is that when you kind of allow yourself to go to bed in that way, your brainwaves are in a beta state, and then you wake up the same way and you start living your life like a passive observer. So back to Google Maps is when you get to a place, you kind of want to figure it out for yourself as much as possible. You might want to pull up your Google Maps, so when you're in a GIF or like, where you're going, that's not where, then like use it when you need it. But if you constantly do it the other way, you can live your whole life in the city and you don't even know it. And I think that's like a very, very profound insight that I really want to like give everyone the ethical way of integrating technology, because at the end of the day, who is technology for?
Yeah, well, for us, but that's kind of my point, right? That I said earlier. We design all these things because we think it's what we want, but then we have it, then we start using it, and then it turns out it's causing us a lot of problems. So we don't even know what we want, right? That's kind of the quote scary future that I have, because we're designing on these things, we're making all these things, but is it really what we want, right? We're more, but in the end, the more, we want less. Oh, let's make this and make that. We got more complexity. No, we want more simplicity.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think it's one of the biggest questions that you can ask yourself, what do I want? I think it's like that question that when you really start thinking about it, the layer one is probably like, I don't know. And that's the honest answer. And I think it just goes back to, I mean, I don't want to get too philosophical and get into like the conversation about free will here. But I think that if there is a case to be made for free will, I think that is actually being able to penetrate all the layers of learned information and go back to, your kind of sole purpose, if you allow me to say. I think it goes back to just like the feeling of being light and energy. At least that's how I quantify the soul, is that's like pure light and pure energy. So I think that's a very, very interesting topic to unpack. And it starts with the question, what do I want? And that's not for anyone else to answer for you. And if you try to outsource that, it's not going to work, right? Like, it might work for 1 year, 3 years, 10 years, hell, 25 years. Or it might work until your deathbed, and then you realize, like, oh my God. So I wouldn't advise it. I would just advise, like, start with yourself and like decide what matters to you, and what you think matters probably might not be it. Like I can take an example I meet a lot of people in leadership positions, and a lot of them are stuck. They're stuck doing something that they don't actually care that much about, but they're not quite aware that they don't really like what they do. And my role then is just to be a mirror and keep kind of asking, what do you want? How do you think about this? In order for them to come to their personal insight, and not, like, not what anyone else told them, not what they think that they wanted, not what their parents told them. A lot of people, they get stuck in an idea of like, I want to save world hunger. It sounds like a great idea. But then my question to them is usually like, are you willing to do what it takes to eradicate world hunger? Like, are you willing to live that life? And if that's the thing that you want to do with your life, all the more power to it. I love you, and I would be so happy to support you in that quest. But if that's not the case, tackle a smaller hit, right? Like take a smaller mountain that you can realistically scale. That's going to feel fulfilling, because, I think we all have our personal purposes here. But a lot of people, they get sidetracked or get distracted, and seemed like a good idea.
how do you then, because you kind of said, okay, you have to kind of tap into yourself, right? But how do you know what's yours? Like, which thought is yours?
Yeah, I actually have something for this. I will plug a YouTube channel called Michael Seeley.
Right.
He's a hypnosis guy, and I took one of his hypnosises is called Finding Your Life's Purpose. And I'm gonna be honest with you. When I heard this, I was a little skeptical. It's like, I'm like, this sounds like a magic trick. Like, So,
hey, as long as it works, man. I don't care if it's magic.
Right. So I did it. It's an hour 10 or something like that. I did it, and lo and behold, I came out of that experience and I found my life's purpose. And
which is
leadership. For me, it was just there was like, I'll take it back one. The first thing that came out of it was I learned what is apparently my spirit animal, which is some kind of like black jaguar with green. So like
nice.
that's one thing that I learned. And I'm like, okay, like that feels good. Get to extrapolate that. But the second part that came out was these 3 words. It was just lead, leader, leaders. In like very, very clear font, right? Like black background, like shiny 3 words. And that was it. Like, the movie's over, like get back to your normal programming. I'll watch the 10 o'clock news.
You mentioned earlier, you were talking about, I think it was the examples, right? Of the more we get dependent on technology, we sort of unlearn the skills, right? I think there's probably there is a saying, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. Is that the saying?
Yeah, I think that works for everything. I mean, I had a personal trainer in Stockholm. His name is Alain Kokoba. And he used to play in the like highest division. He was point guard in the highest division in France in basketball. He's this big guy, like he's the guy you come into the gym and you see a guy hanging off some pipes in like doing a plank upside down in the ceiling, and I'm like, oh, there's Alain. Like, of course, like really like epic guy. And he was always on my ass. Like the first 10 sessions I did with him, it probably made me puke like 6 times. And the first time he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, let's get back to it. And then he didn't ask again. So let's see, where was I going with this?
You don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah. So he was always there, and there was parts of my body that were not strong from having played too much online poker, like sitting down, using my right arm too much, tensing up, like you're constantly in a fight or flight, eating lasagna and drinking multivitamin juice, So he was there, and there was a part of my scapula that wasn't fired. Like it wasn't like activated, and he was always there picking on it. Like, what is this? What is this? And he gave me this story about like how something that doesn't move is dead, and that was his definition. And I really, really liked that definition. So instead of like, I feel like using this like you lose it, you like you don't use it, you lose it. It's kind of like a cop out. Like when I say that to myself, it's like something that I put on a t-shirt at the back and I forget that it's there. Instead, I like to be more like action oriented and use words in such a way that it's like, if you don't move it, it's dead. And if that doesn't motivate you, then I mean, like, I'm not going to be there to carry you up the hill, right? Like no one is going to be able to do that for you. If you want to get good at poker, or if you want to lose weight, like, guess what? Like, you're going to have to do it yourself. Maybe in the future you will have the chip and you can do it like Neo, he's like download and Kung Fu. But in the meantime, like, how about we create the system that can do that, and we can also like, have more time to live our lives, loving relationships, spend more time with your kids, parents, like all that stuff that sometimes take a backseat to our work, because work can be time consuming, can be administrative, and it can be things that you have to do to keep the wheels turning and to grow it. And we also care deeply about, I think, all three of us. I kind of want to like get Adam into the conversation as well. I would like to ask Adam the question of, like, how do you see AI impacting, like, maybe what you do in poker, because we kind of like, that's the audience, right? So how do you see that? Like, where do you see it having a lot of utility or solving either your pain or your client's pain?
Yeah, very fascinating conversation. I'm glad you tagged me in, because I've been waiting to just converse with you guys on this topic, because it's so fascinating. And for me personally, I use it similar to Rene, as like a panel of experts, and I have conversations with it. So I think the main use case of AI right now for me is being able to have conversations and ask why and go deeper on stuff. So if I think about how poker players could use AI or where it might evolve, imagine being able to speak to the solver. It's like GTO Wizards, why do you do that? Where do you generate AV? So you can have this really interactive, here's the solutions, but right now there's a big gap of, why does the solver do this? Why does it have these answers? Imagine you could go back and forth and just learn why the solver does everything. So now you've got the why behind the outputs. That would be the first step I would see. The second step I would say is, okay, now I need to leak find my game. So I'd plug my game into a solver or a chatbot or an AI and go, right, this is how I play. This is my current pool. This is what they're currently doing. What am I missing? Which win rates aren't good? Then I'd plug good players in there with good win rates and go, hey, these are the best players in my pool. What are they doing different that I'm not doing? And now all of a sudden you're having this conversation and you're problem solving three different things. What's GTO doing? What am I doing? What my population doing? Which you don't do with the coach. But now you've got AI and you're tailoring it. And the whole thing would be this fluid conversation of, wow, didn't know this, asking more. And I feel like what I found very useful with AI, I become more like a child again. And I just ask why all the time. Why? Why this? Why this? Oh, that's interesting. You told me this. Why? I'm almost like arguing with AI a lot. I'm just like, don't agree with this one. Why are you saying this for? And then they'll go, sorry, yes, actually. And then somebody pushes back and go, I said this because of this reason. So yeah, I'm using AI to deepen my thinking and to stress test ideas, and then also to understand things deeper. And I feel like it's exactly what Rene said, creating these kind of little ChatGPTs or whatever software you use that is an expert in an area, and then using that to deepen your knowledge and go deeper and deeper and ask for insights and then go back and forth. And I'm the same as you, Anton, as well. I learn a lot through interactions. Most of my learning happens through speaking with people, these kind of conversations, but AI can also do a very good job of that. And it can speak back at me, and it's also very polite. It also goes, oh, good answer. And I'm like, yes, give me some feedback. It feels nice to talk to it. So yeah, I feel like I learn much better than, say, going to Google and typing something. I did a university degree, and lots of the lectures just went off my head because I was like a passenger on the wall, and there's your notes, go do the exam later. I did okay at universities through sheer willpower, but my mind doesn't learn that way. I learn through a conversation. I'd love to go, hey, what about this? Sorry, I didn't get that bit, and slow things down where you can't really do that in kind of those settings. So yeah, I think that's how I see AI going forwards in terms of simplicity, in terms of how I can see things. In terms of other things, I have no clue. My first answer to your question, if you put it on me, I would have been like, I don't know, because the AI is such a evolving thing that even the guys building AI, I don't think there's a kind of plan in place of where we're taking it. And it's just like, it's a tool to solve a lot of problems. And just, yeah, we don't really know how it's going to evolve. But I do feel right now we're in a place where we can learn at a faster rate, exactly as you were saying as well, Anton. And yeah, we can tailor it to ourselves. So you should have your own little teachers, experts in areas that you're learning. You should be conversing with your experts on things you want to learn deeper. And yes, the more curious you are, the better answers you'll have. And yeah, I like Rene's thing as well of putting in good data. Like exactly what you'll find with like these chatbots, if you're having a conversation with no data, it's just giving you garbage. So he's like, all right, well, thanks for that. But as soon as you give good data and you refine that data, it's like, oh now you understand, and you can have a meaningful conversation where you guys are on the same lens. So yeah, I think that's the way I see it.
I mean, I'll be the first to say you're hired. I think you really hit kind of like the biggest use cases on the head. I think it's very, and I think also like kind of how to apply it. I get it makes me very happy because I feel like a lot of people are kind of naysayers right? Like I feel the same. I feel like a child again. I feel like when I feel like when I started playing poker again, I have the same feeling of like wonder and awe, and this whole thing is just rolling out, but it's even bigger. Right? Like it's like poker, I always knew that it's a finite game and it has limitations in like how broad that horizon can be. You can obviously take kind of anything into infinity. Like there's infinite complexity in even the smallest things, but it's still a game and it has a set of rules. And unless we change those, like that's going to set some outer boundaries for parameters. But I think I think like the way we can apply it are limitless. And here I want to strike a chord for this, like going from first principles into lateral thinking, right? Like, what am I not seeing is usually a more interesting question than what I'm seeing, right? Like, I use AI a lot to, like you said, like stress test, but also kind of like fact check myself, like scan for cognitive biases. A good question is just like, what am I not seeing here? And it's also a great question to ask to your employees, right? Like if you work with someone or you work in a team, you don't want to be this combative person who comes in and tells people kind of what to do and has this air of bossing people around, even though you just want to be effective. But so like when I ask for feedback from someone, they might be intimidated if I ask them like, say I phrase a question and it's like, how should I do this? Which seems like a perfectly innocent question. But to them, there's all this pressure. Like, oh my God, I have to do it right. And now as I rephrase that and I say, what would you do if you're in my shoes? Like you give someone by words, you give someone permission. And I think like what I would like to add to what you said is that with that infinite curiosity, the biggest kind of edge is to be a wordsmith, right? Because they're like these models, they process words, and the more clear and concise you can be, or you can even with some words just instigate one framework that will unblock an entire process. Whereas if phrased poorly, you will get a completely different output because you're not saying what you thought you said. So I think like asking a lot of questions, like you punched on that with curiosity, but then thinking about how can I ask even better questions and what are the questions I'm not asking? So like pulling back that veil, I think the big picture comes into working on your weaknesses. And I think that's like a huge underdone thing because it sucks, right? Like it sucks going back to school and feeling like a beginner unless you change your mindset on how to learn. Like if you frame learning as this, beginner's mind type of thing, and that every single time that I meet someone, I'm open, I'm curious, I'm willing to learn, I'm committed to being the best student, I can learn from any person that I interact with versus, I don't like that. I don't like what he said. I don't agree with that. I think we kind of like have this tendency to spend our lives fighting, and I think that we do that because we don't have the right words. And I would kind of say that if we can learn how to also communicate better with other people, like you can take that, you can be more effective in anything you do. And if there's one unfair advantage, like we're still people, we have to work with people. I like it, other people might not, but if you really want to amplify your performance, well, you want to find other people that are good at and that loves the things that you don't. So like learning how to talk to them might probably still be the number one indicator. There's this old thing from How to Win Friends and Influence People. Have you both read the book? So like in that book, there's I can't remember the exact numbers. So here's a point for always like having something to reiterate the information. I think the number was something about, it was like 80-20, right? 80% of the output that you get in an organization is going to be from you being able to work effectively with people. and my thesis here, and I'm like, this seems a little wonky, right? It's an old book. So I'm like, so I did a little bit of shallow research on the topic and realized that number is actually being pushed down because of technology, right? Like you need less interactions and you need more like leverage. And now that's going to go in hyperspeed. At some point, it might be like the her kind of outcome where you have your personal assistant that kind of gets you and understands all your needs and organizes your calendar. And I mean, like I'm building a company around something similar, so I'm obviously like very intrigued in creating like very actionable solutions and digitizing that. But the thing that I realized that people really want, and everyone, no one is exempt from this that I met so far, is that we want to be acknowledged in reality. Like, so like the first question in a philosophy class, like if a tree falls in the wood and no one is there to see it, like does it actually fall? And the most satisfying answer I've heard so far is that it only falls when observed, because that makes it real. And when we can do that, right? Like we can be there and use our now better questions and better insights, more qualitative ways of engaging with like your brother or sister. You can have more meaningful interactions, which to me is like, there's me and then there's others. And then anything in between, that's kind of life. So I think that's a really, really big addition that I hope people like adopt your way of interacting with this technology, and then I hope that they think about why that makes it meaningful. Yeah. So there's no question in there. I just got really inspired from hearing kind of like your take on this. But I guess my question would be, how would you like to see people start? Like, what would be like an actionable first step you think that someone could do to spark that curiosity?
Yeah, so I think it's about trying to solve problems. And as you mentioned, like trying to show up better in your world. That's what we all want, really. We want a better life, but we want to show up as a better version of ourselves. So Rene's use case was perfect in terms of parenting. That's close to home for him. So we set up a parental panel to go deeper onto understanding being a parent. Every single person listening has things they want to be doing better, things they want to be doing better. Maybe it's a health goal that you haven't really got into. So I think like giving it a job or a problem to solve and then conversing with it with that, as you mentioned, beginner's mindset of going deeper. So the first thing is going, what problem would I like to solve and how would I go deeper? And you can really start with it, like ChatGPT is so basic, just like, hey, looking to get into good shape. Currently, I weigh this much and I work out once a month. Where do I start? And you can really start from a baseline of like dumb conversation and build a meaningful kind of training plan or whatever it is, a study plan if you're a poker player. So what I like to do is give context. So I like to give a ChatGPT or something, everything I'm currently doing. This is what I currently know. This is what I'm currently at. So almost like it's brain dump. Just give it as much context, because if someone wanted advice from me, the first thing I would do is ask lots of questions. Well, what do you know currently? What are you currently doing? So I try to give it as much context as possible. If not, it's going to give me some random stuff. And then the goal. What's the goal I'm trying to achieve? So I think when you're trying to solve a problem, what's the goal? Where are you trying to get to? Why is it meaningful to you? Why does this matter? Why are we having this conversation? Why are we wasting time? So trying to get a real clear starting point of this is what I'm currently doing. This is the goal. Just apply to anything. So I'll use a personal example, how I'm using it for writing. So I've currently started writing a blog, and I'm writing very long form, like kind of 3,000 words. And it's new to me, new skill set. So first thing, beginner's mindset, I'm not very good at this. So I'd write long form, and then I'd give it to a ChatGPT, and I'd basically exactly what you said, critique it in terms of, what am I missing here? What structure have I gone for? Where have I used too many words? Critique this exact sentence. Where can I skip a sentence, skip a paragraph or a few words? And then I'd really try to understand what I'm not understanding. And I think what I've learned from kind of ChatGPT in particular, the feedback it gives is actually quite balanced. I really like it. It's almost like it's kind of kind. It goes, you do this well. This isn't so good, and we could probably change this. And like, it's like, it doesn't hit me too hard. Whereas if I ask the person, hey, what do you think of this? Like say I get sent to an editor, you might go, oh, this really sucks. Like it's really not a good piece of work. We're going to start from scratch with this one. And I'm like, oh my God, so defeated. Whereas now I've got this easy like interaction with a kind of ChatGPT to kind of go back and forth. But yeah, basically I think just to be practical, what's the problem you're trying to solve? What's the goal you're trying to get to, which kind of interact with each other, and then start trying to understand, like trying to understand deeper. And then, as you mentioned, like it's all about showing up better in the world. So why am I going for this process to write? I want to be able to write and communicate better so I can show up in the world better and to hopefully inspire some people with the things I share. That's it. That's all I'm doing. I'm not really doing it to write down words for my own good. It's to share with other people. So I want to be able to show up my world better. So yeah, I think that's the practical use case. And obviously everyone watching this is interacting with poker in some way. So think about it for yourself. How can you be a better poker player? What are you missing? And I think what you said as well, what are the questions you're not asking? So maybe people are asking about strategy, maybe they're asking about overall performances as a poker player, but what are you not doing currently? What are you missing? So give it context of what you're currently doing to perform well as a poker player, and then ask it, what could I be missing? What could I be doing more of that would help me towards my personal goals? And then create your own hero's journey. If this is me trying to get the goal, help me with this. You're my co-pilot. And then every day you go in there and go, hey, this is what I've done today. Is this in line with the goals? What can I do better? It's this constant back and forth. Now I'm kind of using a journal app as well, where every day I'm kind of reflecting on my day and going, hey, this is what I did today in line with my goals. Give me some feedback. Normally goes, well done, you did this good. That's very, very good. You could add a bit of this if you got more energy at the end of the day. I'm like, okay, I can do this better. So now I've got like a personal interacting with something that understands my goals. It's got context and it's given me insights into things I might miss. So yeah.
Listening to you, by the way, it got me thinking about something interesting, because I think the majority of people would also write, would also put it in ChatGPT, but it would just say, give me just a perfect outcome. People have the desire that they just want the outcome, right? Whereas you were curious, like, hey, don't just give me the answer, tell me how you got to it, so I want to learn. But I think the majority of people just want the outcome, which I think you can link perfectly back to poker with like solvers. A lot of people just want to know, what do I have to do? And they kind of they don't have the curiosity to uncover like, hey, how you got there. That I find the interesting part. And then I thought like, okay, on one side you could say that with AI, more people have access to it, so it could level the playing field. But like you just said, I think actually it will only make the gap bigger, because it's your mindset towards it, right? And how you use it, you will only get better. And the people who are looking for shortcuts, they will only fall further behind. Do you think it will level the playing field, or do you agree with me that it will probably only amplify the people who have your approach? They will only become better, and the rest will only fall further behind. Even though you could say, hey, we now have access to the same tool.
I mean, it depends how many bots are in the pool, right? Like that's the danger. Like the existential danger is that you're actually not playing against a human, and that they are either like assisted or completely like that there's a bot playing, because that outcome, it was always kind of like annoying in poker. Like is being up against bots is annoying because they're filling the seat of a potentially weaker player, whether it's a regular or a recreational player. So it makes for like a different type of playing experience, but the bots used to be pretty bad. I'd never really battled bots, but I had some heads up guys that were like beating bots for 5 BB100 and just like taking that money to the bank and enjoying it. But the problem becomes once you start applying real-time analytics to that, you're not going to be able to run them over by overbluffing the river, and they're not adjusting, right? So it's kind of rolling it back to that. I think that's a bigger picture question that I think is under talked about in poker. I have some potential, like maybe want to explore a couple of solutions. I don't like talking about problems. I like talking about like how would I solve this. But I think from a personal competitive advantage point of view, definitely, right? Like it's like that with everything. Like just going back to the analogy of the guy showing up to the job interview with a shovel when there's a concrete truck or like a concrete spaceship even, to really drive home the point. that's of course gonna be natural selection. And I think we're already seeing that. If you would like map out the poker ecosystem and see who's winning and who's losing and why, and like do a deeper dive analysis there, you're probably going to realize that the people that are more curious, more action oriented, more solutions oriented. Maybe solutions oriented is better than action oriented. Like they're more solutions oriented, and then like they take action to make those, craft those solutions. They're going to be the big winners in the pool, and it's always going to be like that in any environment. It doesn't matter if it's poker. Poker is nice because it is this kind of like dynamic and relatively flexible equilibrium, but you can map it out easily. Like you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand how it works, because you're constantly trading money. Like I see poker players as a hybrid between a trader and a tennis player. Like you have to show up for practice yourself. You have to keep hitting the ball. It's kind of grueling. It's ups and downs. Like tennis has less variance, but then you like integrate trading in that part of the algorithm, and now your job is just to like make as many like small trades as possible. Every bet is a trade essentially. And I mean, both has a ball, right? Like if you look at, I'm not an expert at Novak Djokovic. I haven't read his biography, but like the way that he's managed his career seems like very on point, and that's why he has the results that he has. And you can look at some YouTube videos where like the statistics is not that much, right? Like he used to bat an average of like winning whatever, like slightly less than 50% of points, and to go from that to world class was like, he's like winning slightly more than average now. And then like keep pushing those like small incremental gains by all of the lifestyle changes, whatever, like all the stuff that goes into becoming Novak Djokovic, versus traders where I recently through Perplexity, by the way, I forgot that that's the only place I read my news is on Perplexity. Great place to, they have like a digest page that you can read your news, which is not the doom and gloom from regular media. It's more like, hey, here's the scientific breakthrough, and like, hey, here's something you find very interesting, and hey, here is a world news that you should actually pay attention to because it matters. And it's backed by source and relevant, because anything else is just an opinion, and we can read opinion pieces. That's great, but when I want to know what's going on, I need facts. So the fact that I found in that news feed was that index fund had outperformed traders by 2x. Like Wall Street traders was outperformed by simple index funds by twice. Like there's a ginormous margin when you really like think about why that is. And then, they do why. It's like lower costs, less human error, less like general overhead, better real-time adjustments. So like I think it's like a perfect example that kind of illustrates the point of when you augment both, right? Like the Novak Djokovic and his process to become an elite competitor, and like doing those incremental gains for you as an athlete, like in our case, mind athletes for the most part, but like you have to power that with your physical performance as well, obviously, nutrition and anything else that kind of fuels that performance. And you add the data analytics and insights and real-time predictions and cutting costs and becoming more efficient. Now you're supercharged, right? Like now you have the best of both worlds, and a very data-driven way as well to get predictably good outcomes, which I think is like there's never been a more sure time to be successful if you apply yourself, because you can now do your market research. Like I could have an idea. I do this all the time. I have an idea, and I used to have to go through this whole process of proving that this is a good idea. And imagine like going back to like the distractions, like imagine how many times I get distracted in that process and I go off and I do something I'm not supposed to do. Like that's the biggest cost in that. Like the actual work that I do can be quite efficient and rewarding, and it's fun, and you get a group together with people and you talk about it and figure out some solution, and it's worthwhile. It's that life. But the distractions, that's a big cost. And now I can do my market research. I can say like, hey, I have this idea I think is really good. Could you help me kind of spawn the idea a little bit further so it's not my half-baked idea of what that would be? Can you make that into something compact? And then I put it through one of the research engines. I can't wait to use Renes. I haven't used it yet, but like some kind of research engine, like deep search, like Elicit. If you haven't checked out Elicit, I will give you a recommendation. It's incredibly powerful. It's like they're outperforming every other research engine on the benchmark. So check that one out. It's also more like it's putting it like you would in a very academic paper. Right? It's like it's an academic paper engine. So you can, if you have a big question, I go there, but it costs you a fair bit of money to run your data that way. If you have a smaller question, you just do like a quick like grok search on a deep search, and you're gonna get back, here's your initial market research. I remember how I said that you can now do everything in like this virtual simulator with the robots, right? Like what you can do now is you can virtually simulate your product from market research, target audience, sub-audiences, who would be more likely to actually like adopt this kind of technology, why, then send that to prototype, create a demo, send demo back to my table, say, hey, I have this demo, now give me a marketing plan, right? Like I want to use Score App to craft a mini survey where I start initiating my clients, my potential customers. And from that, how can I engage them in a way where they're not going to find me dreadfully boring? They're going to actually like maximize their engagement because of our attention span having dropped from 12 seconds to 8. Fact. It's like people's attention is lowering lower and it's being commoditized and people are waking up to that fact. So what you want to do is kind of, maybe we stop there because like personal branding, I think is like the biggest topic of 2025. And I don't want to like get off on a tangent or a monologue. I also want to like allow us for natural points to stop in the conversation. But like, what are some things you get to whoever wants to go first? Like, what was something that piqued your interest in the past probably like 3 minutes that I talked? Maybe it was 5. I don't know.
Rene, you want to jump in?
Actually, what piqued my interest? I know the text is something, but it's not really related. I think to what you said in the last 5 minutes. It was more something that triggered it.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh yeah, I wrote down like you mentioned I was kind of piecing some puzzles together. Extroverted guy, you were talking a lot about your customers, and then I was like, I know you like to play a lot of live poker. We can also see your opponents sort of as your customers, right? You're trying to take their money. So I actually wrote down a question for later on, but here we are. Like how these skills have helped you, for example, in poker to get paid off, for example. I was gonna go somewhere in that direction. That's where my mind was going, but it was not really related to specifically what you talked about in the last 5 minutes.
I think how I've been paid is with number 1 is knowledge and number 2 is network. I think those are the biggest value drivers that I've achieved during this time. Like knowledge never goes out of fad. It's a very, very robust thing that you keep in your brain pocket and you get to carry it with you anywhere you go. And I've been fortunate to, like, one of the biggest fascination I had with poker was live poker. You get to sit down and play with 8 other individuals, or 7 if you're lucky, if it's an 8 max table preferred. And chances are that one of those guys will be mostly guys, but like one of those guys or gals will be very interesting. Because everyone has their, I'm not saying, everyone is a snowflake, everyone has their story and everyone is interesting, but some people just put in more work and created something more tangible or like have a unique point of view of the world. And I'm always fascinated by that. So I think like poker really attracted me was when I realized that, oh my God, like I have an infinite pool almost of highly interesting people. And every day is kind of like this raffle. Like, who am I going to get today? And, some days it's just like Bill and Joe from Texas. And another day it's like 4 traders from New York firms that are at the WSOP table, and they're all kind of swinging their decks, and you're saying like who's got the who's bigger up in the ecosystem. And another day, like I met some of my best friends, like Jeff Sauer, he was a like under 10 world champion of chess, and he was competing with some of the best out there. And I think like Josh Watkins, right? Like a personal hero of mine, and like Jeff was the guy who beat him. Like how epic is that? And I think a lot of people have a tendency to forget that poker is not just a game where your job is to make the most amount of money. It's an entertainment product, right? Like you are the entertainment. And when people start forgetting that, you lose customers, right? Like you lose customers and you lose clients, because you ask 100 people of 100 in a poker tournament, why are you here? I want to win. I'm like, great. But now I ask, why are you here? Like what's in it for you? If you wanted to win, if that was your number one objective, you wouldn't fold ace king so you could call your wife the next day, like when you're done with the day, say you made the money, right? Like if you were there to win, you'd like happily stack it off and you just be like, all right, I'll take my EV and the glory. Thank you very much. So just to highlight the fact that people are paying, poker is a product that people are paying for. It's also a game. It's a skill game. But yeah, I think like that's the biggest, that kind of knowledge I wouldn't be able to source anywhere else. I wouldn't have access to these people. And it's opened a lot of doors for me in my life, like anywhere from authors to VC. Because everyone finds poker fascinating in turn, because it is a very interesting game, and environment and lifestyle. And then, so like that goes into the network side of things, because at the end of the day, people are attracted what they're attracted to. You can't really twist their arm and say like, hey. Like you should find me really like sexy, and they're like, yeah, all about that. You're kind of twisting my arm here. So when being like when having, it's almost like having an unfair advantage, right? Like you step into a room and people say, what do you do? And you say, I'm a poker player, and they're like, oh, you're not in accounting. Amazing. Not knocking on accountants, but just to take a silly example. And yeah, I think those are the big two. What has it been for you? What's been the most like what really got you into poker? Like what was your thing? Was it competing? Was it winning? Was it like the stuff that you get from the money? I guess not, because you're still here.
For me personally, it was purely the interest in strategic games and like just purely the gaming aspect. Like I always played games, video games, strategy games. So for me, it was purely the game. And actually, at some point, what got me into it, I got myself in such a big hole that there was like I couldn't quit even if I wanted to. I kind of put myself in a very bad spot where I was like, well, fuck, well, I got to make this work. So I don't know what would have happened if that situation was different, if I would have still been there. But I had to get myself into such a big hole that actually I'm very grateful for, but because it kind of triggered like this self-development journey of like, okay, well, I have to try to dig myself out of this. And that's when I started to learn how to learn, and, things about growth mindset. I started to learn that, if you do what you do or what you eat actually has an impact on how you feel and how you perform. Oh, really interesting. I never knew that. I never knew that I could learn. I never knew that I had control over my performance. So in a way, was not pleasant. That was not necessarily the most pleasant period of my poker career, but it was the catalyst towards the mindset that I still have today, right? Towards growth, towards thinking about solutions. Actually, I did actually want to quickly touch on a point that you mentioned, because you said when I sit down, you were curious for who was at your table, but purely for how they were as a person. Whereas I think most people, the first thing they look at is, okay, what are the chip stacks, for example, right? Because they think strategic. And it's just like what Adam did with his writing his letter, right? And giving it to the bot. It's like the mindset with which you go in, right? The perspective that you have. And I was curious, like, you seem to understand people very well, right? How has it helped you, like, on the actual poker table in terms of understanding? For example, you said the guy was going to fold ace king because he wanted to call to his wife that he was going to get in the money. How has, like, these people skills and understanding, I guess we could say psychology of people, how has that helped you sort of read the table, if we can say it like that?
Sure. I think it's a great question. I'll take one step back and kind of, I don't really believe in talent. I think like maybe there's something there in terms of like who we are. And I probably will never know if that's true or not. Like, is it like nature versus nurture? But for me, I really, when I started playing poker, I came to a realization that I was quite sensitive towards people's energy. And I found that out really quick through getting a lot of repetition in. Like in poker, you get a lot of feedback. It's the other thing that I find so fascinating. I'm really glad that you brought that up, because the other thing that really fascinated me early in my career, when it was just a hobby, was, I guess, like in a way, when and if someone breaks. Like I can't put it in a less blunt way, because I don't know.
You can feel it, or like, this guy did his breaking point.
I've been in this game for years, and to quote Biggie, it kind of made me an animal in that sense, right? Like it's so fascinating to see someone, like everyone can act tough, but then when it really comes down to it, and you're there and you're playing for a lot, like, are you the kind of guy who is just like Iceman and like kind of lasers in, or do you buckle? And I think it says a lot about people in big and in small environments. Like when you're in flow and you're feeling it, can you pull the bluff? But like on a Wednesday afternoon and you haven't like ordered your morning coffee yet, are you able to pull the trigger? Or like late night when you're tired and you already made a lot of decisions in the day and you just want to go home to bed and call your wife and say everything is good. I made it, honey. We made the money. We're moving forward in the World Series of Poker. Like I think that's my thesis, is to zoom out even one bigger layer, is that as poker players we get a lot of feedback. We get a lot of feedback really, really quick, and our ability to translate that to our other actions, I think what separates, like kind of, there's two kinds of poker player in my opinion. There's the kinds who only like to play poker, which is great. Like you love the game and that's what you do and that's the main focus. Or there's the kind of people that are just like incredibly curious and really like they're fascinated by multiple things and they can really like also do anything based on that. And poker kind of attracted them because it was opportunity. Like you see people from chess, from previously esports, but now those guys are richer than us. So like, haha, like joke is on them. people from Magic the Gathering, right? Like you had all these people that came into poker in that way. So yeah, I think that there's so many things I love about this game. I really think that it's a perfect mini environment that reflects life, and that we can learn so much from each one of these interactions. And then, we're humans, we forget. We sit down at the table, I didn't have my morning coffee, this guy looks like a jerk off. Like it's a different story to actually do it. But that's when it's good to remind yourself that you are the entertainment, right? That you want to keep the game going for as long as possible. You want to also enjoy your time. That guy also has a life, and he's not here to win in the game. Like he's here to have a pleasurable experience, and he's here to don't shit on people's experience. Like just give them what they want, and be graceful that you're a better poker player, and that's your job, right? I think that's what being a real professional is.
Big shout out to our sponsors. First off, GTO Wizard. If you're looking to level up your game, let me tell you about GTO Wizard. It's got everything you need to improve, whether you're just starting out or already crushing it. You got tools like the Hand History Analyzer, a GTO trainer, and even custom drills to help you sharpen your skills and make smarter plays. It's what so many guests we have had on are using to dominate cash games and tournaments. Get started for free and get 10% off your first purchase using the link down below, gtowizard.com/mechanics. If you sign up, you also get access to the weekly coaching webinars where you can learn from me and other great coaches. So looking forward to educating you guys over there. Next up, Coinpoker. Coinpoker is the fastest growing poker room in the world right now. In a world where sites seem to care less and less about their players, Coinpoker is showing good promise, listening to the community, and providing a safe and sustainable playing environment going forward. Join the action and get 33% rakeback and a 150% deposit bonus using code TMOP, or register using the link in the description down below. But without further ado, guys, let's continue chatting with Anton. So if you kind of consider that sort of the thing that got you your biggest edge, right? That you have a good sense of kind of where people are at, right? In their emotional state. How have you find this? Like obviously poker kept on evolving, right? And I feel like, let's say 10 years ago compared to now, for example, I can be in a not great state, but people have done so many theory, and their like baseline have gone higher that they will still make the bluff because I know it's good, even though, they didn't have their morning coffee, right? So how do you feel like that skill is helping you today compared to in the past? And how have you evolved with, the fact that people don't make plays anymore as much based on how they're currently feeling?
Well, I mean, number one, like, let's just draw out the map here. Right, like you sit down and you play, and everyone knows that you're playing a game, right? Like you paid your buy-in, like you're well aware that I'm gonna be here and I'm gonna compete against other people. So when you know that you're playing a game, and that the game is about deception, and it's about concealment, and it's about tricking people into doing things, right? Like, now you have the first clue. That's your first clue. Like, now you got to think, because Bill from Texas or like Rene from Netherlands are going to have a very different opinion about how that objective should be how that should be done. And now the limitation that we have is that you have this attention economy, right? Like you can only pay so much attention in a day because you're not as much as I would like to be Terminator. I'm not, right? Like I still have that limitation. So I can't pay attention to everything all the time, but I will register it. right? Like if I see something, if something is in my visual field, I will actually acknowledge that it's there, but my focus is elsewhere. So I'm actually like, what you focus on is your reality, and then the other stuff is just like kind of being recorded. So now it's a matter of where do I direct my spotlight, right? Like what would be the people that I should pay attention to? Because Rene, he's a strong player. He's probably gonna, like do a pretty good job of like not giving me his money, unless the morning coffee is like significantly late. But this other guy, he like Bill from Texas, right? Like he really like all of a sudden, like his morning coffee doesn't come in, and he starts complaining about it, and he's like he really takes offense. The service here is so slow. Oh my God, right? And then you can go down the layers of this to like if you can really be in flow, if you can really be in that harmony that we all know what it feels like. I bet you that you can like zoom back to that moment where you're completely locked in, and like online is like, this guy doesn't have it. I know from his pattern that like he wouldn't take like those extra 2 seconds if he was on the value side of his range, right? Like it feels like magic, but when you actually break that down into like what that process looks like, it's more about repetition, experience, understanding, knowledge, curiosity, is able to like connect different types of variables into a decision that you're making. And if we can get out of our own way in that decision-making process while having a strong theoretical framework to reaffirm that, like you're not going to be right all the time either. Like honing in on a live read on someone is like, I can take one practical example. I played this tournament in Barcelona, and we're at the river. Guy shoves. It's like he's bluffing or he has it, and it's a big spot. And I'm just there, like, okay, like let's see if I can pick something up on this guy. And I'm sitting right next to him, and his pulse is just going like tick, 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 like this. And I'm like, okay. So I got something to go off, right? And now I think, I'll just kind of wait for a while, because that's like my most reliable way of like gauging information. We'll see if his pulse drops. And like, it's like 2.5 minutes, someone calls the floor, and I'm like, okay, like if like it doesn't, like I'm not gonna continue to run the clock down, because like if his pulse is up, it's up, but it's been 3 minutes. And I call, and he has it. And I'm like, what? And it's like, oh, well, I guess he was just like that excited about being on the river and having the nuts. And I think it's a good example of you can be the best in the world, or you can be just an average person, try to make these decisions. You're not always going to be right. But the more you can lean into making decisions based on your intuition rather than just your logic, that's going to be a whole lot less energy consuming, which is just a win in itself. But it also opens up your mind to have higher executive decision making. So like you could pay attention to like another thing and another thing, and then those become lower down in the hierarchy, right? Like once you've now like kind of standardized that format, and you can build, say, like a stack of information, now all of a sudden you open yourself up to paying attention to something else, and that's your new focus. It's more narrow. It's like higher pix, like it's a better resolution, a higher pixelation. So again, like I just want to, like, I'm not going to be able to ever give any really like practical tips, because they're probably just bogus, right? Like I think the theme of 2024 is like, hey, here's my blueprint. And I'm like, that's great. Is it customized for my needs? It's like, no. Okay, thank you very much. Like I'll like take something out of it and try it. And also going to your point, Rene, of like, or actually Adam, about that was you, Rene, like creating your workout plan is like a very basic kind of use case, but a lot of people get stuck there. Like they get stuck in like, create my workout plan. That's like, I ask people all the time, how do you use AI? They're like, I create a workout plan. I'm like, that's great for you. Like, it's amazing, right? Like you can do that. It can be pretty good, but you're not optimizing your workout plan. Like that would be I'd use it to research, because my goal is optimal performance and longevity. It's not like getting 6-pack abs. Like you will get that as a byproduct of optimal performance and longevity. So you have a really good goal, right? Like you have a goal that kind of transcends and it never stops. That's to me, that's like a good life goal, is that something that you have to do. If I would define it, it's like something that you have to do every day, in little or in big, that will keep driving you forward and it will give you limitless motivation. And you're going to have to keep jumping, because that means you're going to keep getting out of bed, you're going to keep doing your workout, you're going to keep eating healthy, you're going to keep doing all those other things that then powers your other goal. And it's like, start with foundations, and then you can either look at an elite performer and be jealous of what they have, or you can figure out how to do it yourself and create some actual magic. Like being there in that spot and lasering in on someone and getting the right read. When you drill that, it's like, to me, that's the best feeling in the world. Like that makes me feel accomplished, and no one else can make me feel accomplished than I.
It again comes back to what we talked about earlier, like the use it, or if you don't use it, you lose it. It's like you clearly, with all your experience, you kept on sitting there, you kept on looking for this information. Very good point, by the way, because usually, if I take this to online poker, people want to know, there's this very good guy at the table, and you want to know because he's the good guy, right? He's bothering you, and people put all their energy in him. But what you can actually gain from him is very minimal. So it's way better you redirect your attention to the recreational. But they're like, but I already beat the recreational. It's not intellectually stimulating. But like you said, focus on Bill, because if you focus on Bill, your return of investment, right? It comes back to the very first thing we talked about, right? Your energy management. Wow, it doesn't cost you a lot of energy, but it will get you the most rewards. So going back to the first principle you said, focusing on Bill seems like a very good idea. And where, if we think about solver use nowadays, if you don't use the process that led the solver to get to an answer, right, you forget how that process actually looks. So you, obviously also having started poker before solvers came out, just like myself, and I think still that has some advantages, because we always had to figure it out ourselves, right? We had to always go through all these steps to come up, I don't know how to come to a correct solution. So we had to go through all these steps. And I feel like if you only look at solver outputs, especially if you come in with the mentality of wanting to know the answer instead of wanting to understand how it got to the answer, you kind of lose that skill, and you will sit down at the live poker table, and I'm sure you see maybe online kids sitting down with their headphones on their phone. They're not paying any attention. Because, they have already sort of an output in their head, right? They don't see the value that you see in gathering more information. But for them, it's like, what do you mean more information? I'm going to make this decision.
Well, right. But I think it's a question of definition, right? Like you said that you don't find it what I'm hearing is I don't find it intellectually stimulating to beat a player that's worse than I. And
not me. I'm saying the people.
Right.
People
of course,
in general.
I'm not directing them. Our avatar person over here. Does that, and to me that just also exposes a lot of information, right? Like now all of a sudden, if you know that about someone, kind of how they frame things and what their mindset is. And in poker, I think one of the bigger things is you have kind of this, it doesn't always work out, but when it does, it's brilliant, especially live. You have this kind of, you can throw a lot of monkey wrenches in there. I play against theoretically stronger players than myself all the time, right? It's not my full-time thing, but I still like to compete. So I got to find innovative ways of staying competitive. And one of those is, what are they not paying attention to? And I think like that can be like kind of a theme that we keep like kind of pinging off of. So like, what are people not doing is always more interesting than what people are doing. So the person that is really theoretically strong, he might miss that Bill over here is fucking stupid. He still haven't gotten his coffee. And he's just gonna like, in his mind, he's like, if I don't get my coffee, I'm gonna shove any two. Just to make a silly example, right? Like he's there and he's just like, fuck it, I'm all in. Like I didn't come for this. I'm not here to win. I'm here to like drink my coffee, and if I can't get it, I'll go get another one because I'm just that rich. Like I'm in oil and I'm from Texas. So now you have a pure 3-bet and you have a pure 0 3-bet. You use flat, like range. You change that parameter of Bill being more liable to punt his stack in. But like even Bill will be like, well, this guy 3-bet, I don't want to look like a jackass, right? This is too, like, I'll just wait for the next hand in his mind. So the mindset of being like, it's a limited mindset that a lot of smart people have of, I don't find it interesting to solve things that are beneath me. Like that's the bigger picture here from our avatar person. They're too good for it. And I'm like, I'm not too good for it. I'll take that stack and maybe yours as well, because the guy like you raise and the guy shoves and you realize like he's been complaining for the last 20 minutes and you're probably going to stack off lighter, and here I am with like my super strong fighting range and like maybe I only 3-bet bluffs, right? Like all my hands that I flat are like calls even against 2 opponents. And how much did I gain? I don't know, like probably a stack. Like you compare your win rate, like your BB100 to someone else's, and now say who's a wizard, right? So I think like people are people, and if you're too good for it, I'm happy to be here to pick up the slack.
I don't think necessarily too good. I feel like it's more related to necessity. So I feel like it's maybe a mindset of like, oh, I'm sitting against the fish, I'm already winning against him, so I don't feel the necessity to put in more attention that way, right? Because
you say necessity, I say entitlement.
Well, isn't that a different thing?
Yeah, I think it definitely is. Like when you feel entitled to the avatar person here would feel entitled to win because they've studied, because they know theory, because they're smart, because like and they're pinging that off someone else being worse, right? Like that's the mindset. The core mindset is like I get what I'm you mean. Better.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Usually when I see this in players, I try to make the reframe of, okay, it's not about you winning, it's about you taking the actual maximum possible. So I feel like raising necessity usually for these kind of players that have this problem, and trying to make it intellectual stimulating by seeing like all the, trying to make it interesting for them. Okay, these are all types of things that you can actually be doing against recreational that you're currently not doing. And look at all the things that are still possible, to make it interesting for them. But I get what you mean. Like it comes from maybe an initial, like this is not interesting. I'm already winning. I'm superior.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like if you going back to our friend Jaser, he done made a video for GTO Labs where it's like playing against different fish profiles. Amazing video, like really entertaining, and like he has his way of mapping those players and making it into
and a couple of things. Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, so like you make it into a fun game, and then like like our avatar guy might think that that's silly and stupid, and it might be a way that works for him instead. So like, just figure out what works, and if you're gonna work with people in teams, it's like figure out who's like-minded, who has your sense of humor, who likes to create content in a way that you relate to it, right? Like, I think that's also, like kind of a big deal that people used to discard. Like I don't know that many poker players who really want to be completely lonely. As a matter of fact, like I haven't really like met anyone that is that much of a lone wolf. They might say that they are, but people like people. And I think it's a great thing to be able to just step down from that, like, because it's lonely, right? Like, if you're the guy who has that mindset coming into like, people notice. They notice your energy. They know that you're kind of there to just take their money, and you kind of got this chip on your shoulder. And like, the person who has that mindset, they're actually, I would say, kind of suffering from it and making everyone else kind of miserable at the same time. It's like someone busts and there's a sigh of relief. Everyone's like, okay, we can get back to having fun, right? and that kind of sucks, right? Like, it sucks for the person who's that guy. And I think here again, like, if you want to talk solutions, if you are more introverted, you don't have to, like, there's nothing wrong with you, but like, think about, what is my goal? Like, what I want. And just going back to also the life purpose type of, like, where we kind of, what I talked about, there's your life's purpose, but then there's also like a vision. And when I have people come to me and they work with me and they say, I ask them, like, what's your vision? They usually say goals. Like, what I get back is like, my vision are goals. It's like a checklist of things that I need to achieve. I'm like, why? Well, they're like, well, because I want to feel accomplished, and that's how I do it, right? And I'm like, no, a vision is the feeling that you want to have. A vision is like, you can even take it as far as like, how do I want, like, what is the feeling of people being at my funeral is a really good meditation to do. I'm sorry if someone is afraid of death, but spoiler alert, that's a really good way of framing things to make decisions that you do now to make them really matter. And I think that if you have a hard time doing that with people and you don't know where to start, like you said, go to ChatGPT. Like, ask it, like, hey, I feel so-and-so. And you can even talk to it, right? You can just take up your phone and you can say, like, these are all the things. They can bubble out something completely, like, that feels incoherent to anyone else. And then you say, what does it mean? And it will, don't take it from me, take it from Greg McEwen. It will give you something that is actually like, hey, this is what you're experiencing, and here's what you can do about it.
Yeah, I can definitely speak from experience here, as a little bit introverted here and there, a little bit autistic here and there. I have one of my panels is a communication specialist. I gave him a couple of communication frameworks, and every time I get into a heated argument with my wife, I go back and go to ChatGPT and like, let me see what my relationship coach is gonna tell me about this situation and how I can best formulate this. I'm gonna. Listen, the nerds can really learn something here, So you can basically, then I just type in how I feel, and it's very empathetic, by the way, ChatGPT. Okay, and then it tells me exactly how to. It sometimes even tells me, hey, you have a certain need that's not met. I'm like, oh, interesting insight. I was not in touch with that was actually going on, right? I'm just pissed. So it really helps you with that, and then it also gives you like, it even says like, do you want me to help formulate how to better communicate this to your wife? I'm like, sounds great. Can you maybe also add some flowers in there? Just do the whole job straight away. Would be great. But yeah, it's great help actually.
Yeah, and I love that. I love how much you care about your family and like that being your primary objective, right? Like, it's always like so beautiful to know what you care about and then to take action, right? Like, what I hear is like, I have a kid and I want that for that experience to be the best possible. So I learn, I acquire knowledge, I then implement that knowledge on a daily basis and I adjust, right? Like, to me, there's nothing more kind of, that's the meaning of life, right? Is to live your life and do the best you can.
However, if you don't have the communication skills, though, sometimes even though you're well-intentioned, you might not come across as being well-intentioned. So that's kind of where my coach from ChatGPT, he really helps like translate your true intentions in a way that people around you can actually understand that your intentions were right.
Just make sure that like when you do that, and at some point like he gives you the right answer, you're going to be like, not right now. you know, like just make sure to have that aware. Like you're sitting down, and you're still kind of stewing, right? Like, and you have this thing, and you think you're ready to solve the problem, and you get the answer, but like just be able to have that like human audacity to say, you know what, ChatGPT, who doesn't even have like a human name, like not right now. I just want to be pissed, right? Like I think it's like everything is contrast. So like, you know, you can't have you can't have light without dark. Like those two things are one, but it's only one in absence or in contrast with the other one. So I think like allowing yourself to have that feeling of being pissed is also allowing yourself to have the feeling of love. That's a spectrum. So once you are able to also respect yourself and that relationship and give yourself the time to just process it, that's like part of your job, right? If I would write a job description of being a father, I'm not yet, but like if I would, I'll be like, feel my feelings, like number one. That would be like the one. And I will give a shout out to Jason Su, who I've been working with for a time. I think he unlocked a lot of my emotional performance in that sense. Like I worked with him about a year ago, and now it's starting to seep in, right? Like performance has this lag where it's like you do it and it just feels kind of like weird and hard, and you might get some insights and nuggets of value here and there. But then like a year later, it's like putting money in the bank and getting accumulative interest. And one day you go to your bank account and you're just like, oh, someone made a deposit. It's like, no, sir, that's just your interest. Like you made this deposit a year ago and then you forgot that the money was here. So maybe like Adam, since you're a performance coach and you kind of work in this realm, like what do you feel are the unmet challenges of a lot of players that come to you and they're struggling, and they might, you know, on a range from like complete ignorance and maybe that's bliss to a lot of people, to like there's kind of this thing, and I don't know how to put words on it, but it's kind of like this rock in my shoe that's always there, to like, oh, I'm completely aware of the problem, I just don't want to do anything about it right now because I don't know how. So like, what would be like, I guess two things, like the number one thing and then the thing that you find that you're most curious about?
Yeah, good question. So I'd say, as you mentioned there as well, like there's often a lag effect on performance when you're working on yourself. One of the challenges of mindsets is like sometimes it's not direct in terms of the results someone wants. I feel like most people are trying to solve external problems to begin with. They want more money, they want more success, when really it's an internal game that they're not really aware of. They want to be happy. They want to feel good in their environment. They want good relationships. They want to feel a nice internal state, but they think they need to solve the external problem. So they want to have the external result as quickly as possible. Give me the money. Give me the high stakes. Give me the cars, the houses. And they think that's going to be the solution. So I think the journey of mindset and the work I do is often to give them the awareness that actually there's a bigger game going on. There's an internal game that you're playing alongside it. It's like the paradox of two games. One you think is important, but it's not really. One's really important, but you don't really think it's important. And you're trying to level up your character to achieve your goals. And you feel like the way to do that is to achieve the external outcomes. On that journey, as you're evolving and making growth, you realize, oh, wait a second, there's internal blockages, mindset blockages, performance blockages. And as you start solving those, you start getting that external success. You're like, yeah, this is great. At some point, you realize the external success wasn't really the main journey, and the main journey takes over to the internal journey. You're like, actually, I've become a better version of myself. I show up better. I feel better. Wow, that's worth more than that money in the bank account. So yeah, obviously there's many aspects of things players come to me with problems-wise. We could bucket them mindset, we could bucket them performance. But yeah, generally what I enjoy about my work is going deeper and deeper into the internal journey and the where we're all trying to get to, that kind of happy feeling good about ourselves. That often means being able to perform. It often means being able to show up in a way that we're proud of. It means setting goals and achieving them, having agency in our worlds, but also not at the cost of our internal landscape. Which actually leads me in a nice segue to the next topic, because you mentioned your own things that matter to you the most, which were optimal performance and longevity. And I've been keen to dive into the whole conversation. So I want to open up this doorway of optimal performance to begin with, and then we'll branch into longevity. But for you, what does optimal performance look like? And what are some of the key things that you feel like you do that help you to optimize your performance?
I think the best way this might not be the best way, but I'll give it a shot anyways. I think the best way to kind of frame that is going back to the feeling that I want, the like experience that I desire. Currently, my kind of like model for that in terms of performance. So you can bucket it into two, like health and performance. On the performance side, my go-to book is The Art of Learning by Josh Watkins. Brilliant book. I can read it over and over and I'll be equally fascinated each time. So there's this moment where he talks about him being in competition is like one, like there's like this dune where you have a feint within a feint. Like I like that concept of just having something be so subtle that you have to be completely connected to what you do in order to even know that it's there. And then you can like lean into someone or like create space for someone to lean into it and then like grapple them, right? It's like contact sport, really, really like high, like super, super high level edges are like razor thin, but you're still looking for that thing that by any means, right? Like technical skills, mental skills. It's a very like deep, multi-layered game. What he followed that up with was his like how he sees reality. That was like the bigger thing. Where he explains this like a camera, like a shutter, where it's like, you know, like you see, like instead of seeing reality as like a continuum, you see it as freeze frames, where it's like there. So you're able to slow down time while being in that state of like, physically, I need to move something in order to have my opponent believe that there's space there, so that he will go for the attack. And based on that, I can kind of like create empty space for him to fall into, and I can grapple. And like, you know, like time speeds up again, right? That to me is so desirable. Right, like just talking about it gets me so fired up that I'm like, I want that. And I know myself well enough to know that I won't be happy until I achieve more than that. I don't feel like I have enough of that in my life, just to be really honest with you, right? And that makes me feel frustrated. It makes me feel sad. It makes me feel angry and kind of like lonely and misunderstood, because like that's the feeling that I'm going for. And that's like, I know I'm setting the bar high, but my felt experience from that is it's a pursuit, right? So I think from a performance aspect, that would really be it so far. Maybe that definition will change over time, right? Like maybe in the future, like I get to a place that's similar to that, and then I want more. And that's the whole purpose, right? Like to have a better experience of life that's more rich and more epic.
Yeah, it sounds like it's this in the flow of what you're doing to like a real deep level where you're just in sync with reality. I'm sure we all can relate to moments of like that. I think the examples you give were good in terms of you feel like you know what's happening. It's almost like that you've slowed things down enough to just be very in sync with the moments, like that very present flow-like state. And as you touched on as well, we all would like more of it. There's not like a limit, like, oh, I've had too much, been too present, I've been too in the flow of what's happening. And I did feel like... Again, give me more. Yeah, I think it's certain things that take us there, right? And that's why certain sports like adventure sports, surfing, things that the activity itself can take us into a flow state. Poker itself can be very immersive and take you into that. Then there's everyday life where we also want to feel present, feel connected, but there's less of a performance goal. There's less of I need to almost exploit the situation or make the most of it. I just want to be present. So for you, in terms of what gets in the way of this kind of optimal connection with the moment you're in, what do you feel like prevents that being more of a default state?
Oh my God. Do you have a list?
Let's go.
Right? Like there's, I mean, it's the whole thing that I'm building my business around I'm building a business to put myself in the best position possible to achieve this, while also, running a business and making sure that it's people, it's bills that needs to be paid, there's communication, there's tools, we need to have strategy, right? Like there's all these actions, but you can also call them distractions, right? Like you need to have in order to get into that kind of flow state, there's also different folks, different strokes, different folks. So some people, they thrive in a more chaotic environment, and that's actually like their harmony. Like they perform really, really well. So I think it's very individual, like how to get there, but there are some common denominators, right? Like things that won't get you into flow is like pure distractions. So like things that are not a part of the thing that you actually do, that takes you out of that zone, because it's like, you open your inbox and in order to retrieve some information, and all of a sudden you see the email from Steve who wants this, like, it's like the third round of feedback on a topic that you're like, oh my God, like, why doesn't he get it? And you're out of it, right? Like back to another 15 minutes of like getting back into the zone. There's also other things, like we all act differently. So like for Rene, you had this kind of like, I work really well when I have back against the wall, right? Like that's like a default that like pushes you to take action. For other people, back against the wall might mean that they get into fight, flight, or freeze, right? Like you're a fight, right? Like you pick fight. Like I back against the wall, like I'll punch my way out of it. And you did. And that's like super amazing. And something that you can always kind of like know about yourself. Like one of the questions I wanted to ask you guys, maybe we can like do this later, but like when was the last time you felt really accomplished? And I bet you, Rene, if I may, that like when you did that, you did feel really accomplished, right? Like because you achieved it, like you fought your way out of like a pretty dire situation, and that's amazing. So, knowing yourself in that way means that you can actually make some pretty accurate predictions, right? Like in so-and-so environment, when so-and-so happens and so-and-so goes wrong, I will predictably act this way. And like for me, when my resources are not meeting my demands, my default is freeze. Right? Like I had a startup before this in performance nutrition. First time founder startup, we made all the mistakes, like all the mistakes in the book. Just did them all. And at some point, resources weren't meeting demands. There's too many things going on. We have too big of an operation. It's all going to shit. And I'm there working like 24/7. It feels like I'm working or I'm sleeping. And at the end of the day, I could have this felt experience of like, oh yeah, what about that? And I'm like, wait, did I do that today or yesterday? You know, like it's like the polar opposite of the experience of Josh Watkins being in like the shutter speed. Like this is the literal polar opposite. Right? Like I'm there and I don't even know what happened when. Like, so that's how far your range can be from how you perceive time. And that to me was my wake up call, right? That was the first time when I had that, I'm like, oh shit, like this isn't going where it's supposed to go. And I kept being bombarded with admin, and I default to sitting there and just being, I wonder what's one thing that I do moderately well that I can do that makes me feel productive. So, which is like definition of pseudo productivity. And if I would have had a better support system to guide me and to kind of pull me out of that, for me, I respond really well to questions, right? Like that's one of my defaults, that when someone asks me like, hey, how are you? Or like, hey, I'm feeling like this isn't going where we want it to go. Like, let's sit down and talk about it. What do you think? I will be like, you snapped me out of that in a second. But at that time, I didn't really have that support system, or at least not like often enough, right? Because people have this idea of me as being someone who, he's got it, right? Like he's always good. He's the guy who's always good. And little did they know that like at this point I wasn't, but I didn't have a clear way to express that because I was going into my default. So it's like a very extreme example for things that could get you into the exact opposite direction. But on a more daily basis, it's more distractions, it's stuff that gets in the way. It's a bottleneck that I have to deal with on a tool that I'm not familiar with. Like I'm trying to like figure out how to do an automation and I can't log into my pro Instagram account. Like, you know, it's like those type of things where I get really frustrated. And I'm frustrated because I don't get to have my time of doing the things where I know I could provide more value. I like that to me is, and my challenge is how to individualize that. My challenge is how to set up a system that works for just about anyone while acquiring data so that we can more accurately predict what you need and solving like all the pain points. Like not many people like to do their taxes, right? Like this is like, okay, so we take care of the boring stuff. So yeah, that's like a little introduction to me and my flirt with burnout. I never really burn out because I have excellent habits and I keep showing up for them. It's like I do my workout in the morning. I do my meditation, although at the time I probably should have just gone and punched a punching bag. And I will give you the end of the story. It's about, right? I was in Vegas. I think I busted like 20 bullets in a row, and it wasn't for playing bad, but sometimes the universe has this way of kind of conspiring against you to really like put you on your ass. And I've been getting also ripped because for 2 weeks, I just like hit the gym at 5 p.m. for my second workout of the day. And I'm there one day, it's like a 24/7 gym, that we have in Vegas, and I was there by myself, and I look at this punching bag, and I'm like, I see myself, and I said, I should be so pissed right now because everything is going to shit, and I should go punch that punching bag, and the punching bag was looking back at me and saying like, yeah, but you don't got shit. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. So I use my policy, and I have this policy, right? Like sometimes it's better to just give up. Let's face it, we've all been there. And like the sooner we can realize that you're just not, this is not what you're supposed to be doing, the more time you save yourself and everyone else in the process. And this was my like, it's not working. I'm going to give myself a day and I'm going to give up. And I just went home and I slept. That's what I did. I just went to bed and I slept for probably like 10 hours. And the next day I called my team and I said, listen, guys, it's not working. And I'm not willing to do what it takes to make this work because I don't have it right now. Like, I'm sorry. In a different way, in a different world, we could have made it. I really appreciate all the hard work that you put in. And then I tried to give everyone the best landing that we could. And then I got back to rebuilding my energy to figure out what I learned from this process. If I do it again, how could I do it better? And just getting my energy back. But the real cost here is time, my well-being, my relationships with people that were strained by this, right? Like it's real life actions and consequences. And thankfully, we're all adults and we all dealt with this in a good way, but ultimately that's what I'm looking for people to avoid, because this could have been so easily avoided. It's like, if I would have had someone there to kind of like guide me and navigate my myself through this process and also give me like systems and tools that are actually working instead of listening to like 1,000 people's advice and like scrambling to find a way. I think that's also, just to plug AI again, because that's been kind of one of the themes of this conversation. That's another use case, right? Like you can really help that kind of jumpstart a process or like remove a lot of the administrative burdens. But if you try to do it yourself, you just be like me. You'll be frustrated and you can't log into your Instagram and there's all these bottlenecks. And all of a sudden you end up doing admin instead of doing your job. Like you want to be a high stakes poker player. You want to be like Steven Chidwick, right? Like Stevie is not there in building all of these things. At least I don't think so. Maybe he is. I'm just like, he wouldn't be my client. So yeah. I think the biggest thing to solve is for people to be more successful and happy, and to do that in their own way, and remove all the stuff that's not their zone of genius, because that's the missing component, right? Like if you want to get into flow, you need to be in your zone of genius, and then all the small stuff that you then have to do, like the 20% of stuff that you're actually not good at, but you have to do anyways. Now you have the energy to do it, and you'll feel so accomplished. You feel so accomplished when you did that thing, you pushed yourself, and I fucking didn't like this, but now I'm an expert at like setting up a marketing funnel automation. Like, you never thought that would be the thing that would give you that sense of gratification. And again, it's just like self-esteem. That's something that you can only get for yourself, because even if someone else would give it to you, you wouldn't want them to.
Yeah, I think you took that answer in so many interesting directions, which I want to just like underline some points as well, because we're all fighting the same battle of trying to do deep work and meaningful work, and we're fighting the distractions of everyday life, stimulus, dealing with people, dealing with email, dealing with notifications, Discord communities popping off, people want attention, and it only feels like it's getting more and more dialed up. So if we're not proactively taking steps to protect that, distraction becomes the default, or at least like busy work becomes the default. So we've got to be really cautious and mindful of how to carve out this work. I really like the book Deep Work by Cal Newport. That really implanted in my mind for a long, long time how important it is to protect like blocks, 90-minute blocks I do, where I'm uninterrupted. I'm off the grid. You can't contact me. There's no distractions in my world, so I can focus deeply. Because as you mentioned, you've got to control your environment. If not, something that's not related will come up. And I feel like the default now is if you haven't protected time, it will get eaten up, or something will come up that will distract you. So you've got to think in your days, most people listening, poker players, when are you going to study is the kind of deep work you'll do, and how can you have it uninterrupted time and kind of protect that? If not, you'll end up being distracted. And I think working on our own projects, we're all trying to achieve our own goals, and we need to make sure we're kind of carving out our own time to get into this flow state, as we were talking about, and trying to get those moments of high production. And similar, I think the things you mentioned, I relate to more as well, in terms of learning new things, setting up new systems that I didn't relate to as I would get pleasure from, but as my goals have evolved, my deep work's also evolved with that. Now, you mentioned something about giving up, and this kind of pushed back on myself, because I feel like I don't give up enough. So one of my things is I kind of push through stuff. I'm kind of a bit of a fighter at heart, and I kind of pride myself in resilience to a detriment sometimes. And that give up button is almost like, I know it's there sometimes, but I just don't like to press it. And I think you mentioned one of your high points in the questionnaire, consistently sticking to my giving up policy all these years. So I'm curious to know what this giving up policy is, where it gives you kind of freedom to get out of things that you shouldn't be doing. And maybe for myself, how I could learn from that to give myself my own give up button.
Right. I mean, number one is just to give yourself permission to just, the one notion is to, and again, I would credit Jason Severe because I learned this from him. Like his introduction was becoming the kind of person who does what I want the way that I want to. And if someone asks me why, it's because I want to. So that's number one, right? No one else is going to be able to grant you that permission. So I think like that's a kind of like precursor. Then the second part, I think it's being a man can be kind of a problem at times, right? Like we've been taught forever that this is how you're supposed to deal with something. And it's kind of dogmatic in a sense, right? Like you're born as a man and you're supposed to be like fill in the blank, like whatever belief that you've grown up with. So I think like part of that is to also redefine what that means for a lot of people, not everyone. A lot of people like are in touch with like who they are and they're completely fine with it. They have that like kind of awareness. But I think just getting curious about that is like really, that's the work to define that for you and not letting everyone else step on that. And then I think we can get to kind of the meat and potatoes of what it is that we're actually doing, which is we're creating a strategy for ourselves. We're creating like a fail safe. Like you're taking this track and you're going down a maze, and at some point you realize that the maze is never ending. There's no way out. Like you just literally can't win the maze. And the best way to go through, like the only thing you can do now is hit the eject button. And there's like this red button that you have there, and it's just going to fall through the floor, and it's going to be scary as fuck, right? Like, sorry, I don't know if like I'm good to swear on the podcast, but it'll be like the scariest thing that you do because it's all your fears are perceived like down there. But the other alternative is to continue running down this maze forever. And that's even more unbearable. So what I'm kind of hinting at here is like, if you already prepared that, like I'm entering this and I think I'm going to make it through the maze, and just going back to first principle thinking, like another way of saying it is like, what's the fastest way of going from point A to point B in like, this like games where you have a maze and you try to take a ball through it, and people will be like, well, it's like this and this and this. And it's like, no, it's like going around the whole thing. Right? Like you just don't take the course. Like you do something else entirely, or you jump over it would be another one. Like that's a good way to explain lateral thinking. You're much more likely to hit the eject button earlier when you have clear goals, clear objectives, and clear kind of rules for yourself. So like, here are my values. Here are my beliefs. Here is my vision, my mission, my purpose. And from that, I can clearly articulate what works for me and what doesn't. Right? Like, yeah, you can even do like more, you can take a more robust approach and you can do like a personality test. And from that, you can also derive some insights of like what works and what doesn't. And then from that, you craft like what would be something that I would think is suitable for me to do. So like for me, my strategy was to like, whenever things go so wrong that there's nothing, like either it's like external circumstances, like, there's like 13 all-ins in a row. I think I mentioned it in your questionnaire before, but like I had a final table in Florida where I was the bubble boy when like a 25K was like really, really big. And it was 13 all-ins before me and every single person survived. And then it was my turn and I could just feel it. I'm like, it's gotta be me. and I busted. And that day, just to take like a silly example of this, I just gave up, right? Like I just say goodbye to everyone, in a like polite manner. And everyone was there like, wow, this guy really got fucked. Like he really got. Like he was the guy today. And I just walked out. I threw my midnight coffee in the trash can at 3 a.m. And I went upstairs and I told my friends, like, how did it go? I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. I just want to like, I'm just going to plug in my earphones and I'm going to listen to some music and I'll see you tomorrow. And I gave up. And the next day I woke up and I felt great. and I met some of the people that I played FT with, and I was all smiles, and they're like, man, like, you really got fucked. I'm like, yeah, but I'm good. Would I have been good if I kept like holding on to that and just feeling like it was just unfair and this wasn't right? Like, was I unlucky? Is that a fact? True. Now what? So what? Who cares about your story? That's the past. So I think that, right, like to get more pragmatic and practical and like something for you that you can take away is think about the story and the narrative, where I am, and then like what are the things that I want to achieve, and then mirror that from an action plan and have the eject button ready, or a parachute, or however you choose to design it, so that when the day comes, even if it's scary, you're going to be so much more likely to press it. Because if not, you might, like, if you take the parachute, you might just like go all the way down, right? Or like release it too late might be a better way to say it.
Yeah. As you were speaking there, I was thinking about a lot of things. But one thing that came to mind was resisting, almost like resisting the moments. Like the giving up's not like a passive thing. It's almost like, I accept what's happened and I'm stop fighting it. It's almost like you're swimming up current and the current's so strong and you're just really swimming against it, and you're like, you can just relax and go with it. You're just resisting the whole time. And then my thoughts about that, why that's challenging to stop resisting, is what you lose. Because you've almost like put your identity into like getting this goal. You've got a lot of emotional attachment to it. You started the pursuit because it was meaningful and exciting, and now you've got to let that go. And for me, I've got this like overly optimistic side of time, so I'm like, I can find a way out. There must be a back door. I'll dig a new hole. I've dug 20, but there must be a 21st. And then I convince myself that through over optimistic that I can get around it. When in reality, I'm just swimming against the current over and over. So as you were speaking there, I thought the kind of main stop loss for me, stop loss to use a poker term, would be to understand my values at a high level and go, when am I compromising my values to achieve this other thing? When am I, like as you mentioned with the business you set up, your health was suffering, your relationships might be suffering as well, and you're putting yourself in a detrimental state. Like things were compounding upwards to the point where you're like, I don't know how to get out of it, and is the goal even worth trying to get out of? And I think that's where this kind of becomes very practical. And I think for myself, relaying what you said, understanding where I'm resisting, and then where it starts compromising some of my values, and then what do I lose, and can I be brave enough to give up and just say, okay, this is gone. That dream you had, it's gone. It's all gone. No worries. And then start from something new. And then knowing, which I've got better at, like something else will appear. Like once you say no to something else, one door closes, another one opens. You don't know that in advance because obviously you've got a limited amount of attention span. But when you stop doing one thing with your time, other opportunities arise. And often it's the next vehicle, what you are supposed to go into, which is more aligned. So yeah, that fits in really well. So yeah, I'm glad you covered that one. So I wanted to cover now a little bit about health, because we've touched on it on the surface.
Before we go into the next part, I'm actually quite curious. So Rene, if you'll humor me here. So like, since you're a fighter and you fought your way out of this, and like that's huge strength. Like, can you think of a time where you like that strength of yours ended up biting you in the ass, like little or big?
Yeah, I actually wrote this down, but then actually Adam went on to the next topic. So actually it was good that you pointed out, because I was going to interrupt Adam, but then he straight away went to the hell. I was like, okay, never mind, I'll let it go. But I actually wrote down, because I had a similar experience, or at least the experience that I had, it was like a conflict in belief. There was like a belief or an identity that built in me maybe through that time that kind of said, hey, you can make anything happen. Right? You can do anything as long as keep going at it. So at some point, actually, it was in trying to scale the previous coaching business, right? Right now we have the mechanics of poker, which we have shaped now in a way that it suits my needs, right? And I can do exactly what I want to do. But before that, it was poker ambition, and I was doing this, and just like in poker, I was like, well, I'm not just gonna do this for doing this. When we're gonna do this, we're gonna try to be the best, right? Gonna be the next upswing poker, whatever. And that's just a mindset. When you do something, you have to do it big, a belief, and then like you can make anything work. So when shit happens, well, you don't quit because you can make anything work. But then there's stress, blah blah. And at some point, I think I had a call with my friend to tell me like, yeah, I know you can make that happen, but why? What's the purpose in the end? How is it gonna suit your life? And I was like, And then I think I had another call actually with actually an a student of mine, and he was explaining that I think he had a couple of language schools in Spain, and he said, "Listen, I just have schools and it's fine like this, and they generate me money and I can do all the other things that I want. I don't have to make this the biggest language school in Spain. Why would I do that? Then I can no longer live my day-to-day life in the way that I want." And I was like, wait. So I'm actually not doing all these things and I'm stressed out, blah, blah, but it's not really serving my purpose. And actually that's how we we changed our whole program. We changed the way we do coaching. And now I spend my time doing on the things that I actually like to do. Right. So now I think he said, like, how can the business help you instead of it basically hurting you? So good actually that you brought that up. So for me, it was more realizing that I have a very strong identity linked to that I can make everything work, but there's no point in trying to reinforce that, or just not everything is worth, figuring out and resolving.
Right. And I think, thanks for sharing, right? Because I didn't want to step off the topic and just making it into we're all heroes. Right? My story was one of failing and yours was one of success. But then my story of failing has led me to feeling a lot more success. I went on to the next thing and I did the work and I learned from this experience.
Yeah, same here.
And exactly. So it's all, I like this story of the farmer and good thing, bad thing, who knows, I think it's very humbling and another, feel free to steal this, anyone, right? Things will always change is a mantra that you can use every single time. You're flying high, things are going well, money is falling on you, and Eddie Murphy, there's oh, that's mine, that's mine, thank you very much, things are going great. Enjoy it, celebrate it, but be aware that too is impermanent, and even more so when things are tough. And here's for the people out there that are really, really struggling. I bet there's some people that would listen to this that will be yeah, not feeling it, right? And that's okay. Just take comfort in the fact that too will change as long as you keep putting one foot in front of another and doing something about it. And look at what you could miss if you don't. Right? Look at the other alternative, the other outcome, the other trajectory that you could take that you would miss by not taking one step. And I think that's really profound, right? Also just to bring it back to you, Adam, in terms of that, if you think about the escape thing as just one step, it makes it a whole lot less scary to take it, and not identifying with that whole story and feeling the universe will collapse on you because you say, no, I don't want that. Somehow I feel we kind of forget that we have the right, as being born, you have the right to say no to things, and that's your choice ultimately. So I think something to kind of meditate over and to just decide, right? Going back to become the kind of person and then repeat that for a lot of times. We will get to the other part. I think a good way to also do it is to change the input, right? The definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over and expect a different outcome. Why do we do that? Because we kind of use the same script over and over. We try to ask the same question, the same prompts. And if you now put in new questions, the output will look vastly different. You're going to gain a new perspective or a new insight, and that's something that you can actually practically use. So I think that's a good one. Educate yourself, learn about different types of fallacies, like sunk cost fallacy and these type of things. So hey, this is what my brain is trying to do. And that way you have another layer of protection. It's kind of having an antivirus in your computer. Probably a good idea if you have sensitive information. And what you said, Rene, right? Ask yourself why. Why am I doing this? Why? If you ask yourself why 5 times, you can try this. It's a really fun exercise. It's like, that Louis C.K. sketch, or is that, he's canceled now, I guess, but Louis C.K. sketch, where he's like, his kid is asking him, like, why? Why is the sky blue? And he's like, well, because, it works. And it really works to ask yourself why. Once you ask it 5 times, and again, like use case for AI, you do the 5 whys. You just call it 5 whys analysis, and you get to the bottom of every problem, which is also a great way to like build a product. Because that way you can come to like, is it something that I think is a good idea, or do people have this actual problem? And you ask why, and then the 5th why is like, and here's why it's a good or a bad idea. So a little shortcut that you can take, and that's just some. I think it was a really, really good topic, and I'm happy you brought it up, Adam. It's like very, very good questions, and I think it's very relatable, right? Like we're all here like relating on this experience that is quite challenging, wanting to be high performing and kind of stumbling on ourselves. So what was your next question? It was about like health and like this health side and longevity side of performance.
Yeah, well, I'll wrap this one up in a bow, and then we'll go on to the next one. But yeah, I think as you mentioned there as well, it's almost like knowing which goals to pursue, like what we're trying to achieve, and then when we kind of stray off course. Like maybe we set a clear direction to begin with, but like over time we realize that this goal's not going to work. Like you start in the business and you found it, you're like, yes, we're going to change the world. Rene with the poker company, you're like, yes, this is going to be the new thing. And the idea is so pure, it's so inspired. Then as you start going, you're like, we started on this track and now we're over here. And it's like the goal is trying to get back onto that track. But in reality, it's like, maybe I'm chasing the wrong thing. It reminds me, I think it was 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, when he talks about like the importance of knowing the games that are worth playing. He goes, all right, to be a chess grandmaster might take you 10 years if you're incredibly smart. Is it worth playing? Do you want that? Do you want those 10 years? You're good at chess. If it's 10 years, was it worth all the sacrifice? So trying to get a deep root of what games am I playing and are they worth playing for your own reasons, and really trying to understand that. And yeah, I like those 5 whys to get past that kind of surface level answers and go deeper and deeper and deeper. So yeah, I know we could go forever on this topic because it's so, I wanted to open up a doorway on impermanence as well, because you mentioned that word, and it's a key word for me as well. So we could go deep on that, but I want to go back to a little bit about health, because we did touch on it, but we didn't go super practical. And I know you've done a lot of things around health and you take it very seriously. I think the audience could learn a lot from practices you found useful. So I know you've done meditation, breath work, you do a lot of fitness stuff, you are big into nutrition, so big that you started your own nutrition company to provide high quality, high performing meals. So yeah, I'm curious to know for you, what things do you feel are the most important, or the practices that are most important for you to feel healthy in your body and perform at your best?
I'll start with a fundamental truth that it's so glaringly obvious. Like a lot of the really big insights, I think, are like they're right there in front of us all the time. And then it just dawned on me one day that all we are is our nutrition. And I'm like, what? There's this sense of like, what? And then you hear the slot machine in Vegas. It's just like bing, 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 bing. Like all the money is starting to come out of the machine, and you're like, oh my God, we just hit the jackpot. Right? Like, I think that if I would have had the bandwidth to take multiple steps back when I was running the nutrition company, that would have been something that I would have built the concept around, because that's robust. Like that's something that you can't really like argue with. It's like facts, and it's strong, and it like hits home for everyone. And like that way you don't have to change someone's mind. You just have to illuminate the problem that they have in order for them to become aware. And then your job is to understand who is not just your customers, but who are your fans, right? Like who are the people that resonate with like what you stand for and the way that you do it, and how can you get more of them? Because they will be the people that kind of like informs you what you should be doing, but also being the people that are your biggest advocates and that pushes your not your product, I think is too shallow. Like your pushes your vision forward, and that's something that you want to get people involved in, right? And like, I mean, like there's so many topics that I could unpack. Like I keep like right now it's like 2025 and personal branding and aligning that with your company's brand. I think that's like a really big one to do, but you can't do that if you don't stand for something, if you don't have a voice. And that voice needs to be something that's grounded in a concept that people care about and relate to, because if not, they won't get what you're doing, and people don't like to be made feel stupid. They don't like to feel stupid. So just being like, giving a little, I think like nugget on that, I think is can be valuable. When it comes to my personal performance, it's an ongoing struggle. Like that's the best way I can put it. There's so many things that I either want or I think I want that are not healthy for me, that are just like the distractions. There's so many traps that are always there, that are like easy options. They taste good. They're filled with chemicals that will make my microbiome not operate the way that it should, which will lead my gut to tell me I'm hungry all the time, which will lead me to eat more crap. And here we go again, right? So like, just like social media, I don't trust my brain to like let that do the governing, like have that being my governing organ. I kind of trust my gut, but I need for that to be clean, because going back to the fundamental truth of like, all I am is my metabolism. Once I can start there, it fuels my engine, it builds me, right? Like it's what gets me to have serotonin in my brain or not. And so when I have that insight, it's like, it's so profound, right? It's like, that's like the engine of my life. That really helped me. Like that really like served me in a way where I could now mirror all my decisions when it comes to my health, my performance, my longevity through that one thing that I try to nourish. And then like, I'm not always succeeding at, right? Like I too, some days just eat a bunch of crap, and just like with meditation, the whole point is to congratulate yourself when you realize that you're doing something that you actually don't want to do. Like I have this agreement with myself, like this is not what I wanted to do. So having something written down on your actual goals and something that you can use as like a guiding north, and put it in a place where you won't forget it. Or have a friend, like have someone that you have some accountability with, and you're just like, hey man, did you forget about this thing? And you're like, maybe, you know? So I try to think about my performance just like I do with my brain. Like I don't trust it, so I try to put up as many safeguards as possible, surround myself with people that are like-minded. I decided to give up drinking I'm not having alcohol for a year. And actually, that's a really good one. I learned this from Greg McEwen. He was on Tim Ferriss, and he said that people default to going back on like the resolutions because they start like having a negotiation. And if you have a negotiation with yourself, you're going to lose, right? Like that's the one way or another. There's no winner here. There's just like a loser and a winner, and they're both yourself. So removing the negotiation can be an extremely practical tip. And it was like, I was so shocked because it seems so like stupidly simple almost. But then I started implementing this for myself, and I'm like, it just works, because I didn't give myself the option to weasel my way out. And it's like, and there she is, right? Like this thing that is the most beautiful, brilliant thing that has so much power and potential but that's also so goddamn lazy, right? And that's how I think about performance as a philosophy. I think what works for me probably won't work for you. I think some things might, but you won't know unless you try to find out, right? So setting these, like, another thing Greg McEwen said as well was, people, like, New Year's resolution gets a bad rep, but people should think about it in the inverse. You shouldn't set New Year's resolution once a year. You should do that almost on a daily basis, or like you should do it all the time, right? Like, you set new goals, like you set, like, you don't want to be this like all over the place, but with some direction, right? Like, and that's why it's good to know your purpose, because your purpose is that North Star. Like, for me, it's leadership. And when I then have to make decisions like, ooh, shiny object over here, would I love to do that? Absolutely. But does it have to do with leadership? And if not, it's a shiny object. And I can move on and say, you know what? Like, I love what you do and I appreciate you, but this is not a part of my core thing. And if I do, I'll be taken away from the thing that really matters to me. So, yeah, I think that's the most value that I can provide someone. It's like, hey, go out there, try it out, figure it out, see what works, see what doesn't. Just make sure there's, this saying that's like, before you address yourself with low self-esteem or depression, make sure you're not in a room filled with assholes, or like, that you're not surrounding yourself with assholes. Like, the same thing goes for your mental health, right? Before you think that something is wrong, you better try and like get on that diet, right? Like, fix yourself. Like, try to fix yourself once, and if that's not the thing, like, do something else. Maybe you have to see a psychiatrist, and maybe like you actually have a chemical imbalance in your brain. I'm not knocking medicine, but as a field, but the way that it's been made into a product and given to people, antidepressants, for example, they kill your microbiome. And if you try to get off it, like, good luck being happy if you don't have any serotonin pushed to your brain. By the way, public service announcement is that Diet Coke, like diet soda type of thing, it's more addictive than sugar, and sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. So, and it also kills your microbiome, so that you're not producing serotonin, which is the happiness-making hormone in your brain, so that you feel clinically depressed. 90% of serotonin is produced in your gut. So, like, try those things first. If you want to get into performance, like whatever performance, right? Because once your nutrition is adequate, you're going to feel better. And when you feel better, you make better decisions. When you make better decisions, you can do more of the things that makes you feel good. And it's like the snowball starts rolling downhill, right? Instead of you being the guy who just like keeps pushing the rock up the hill and then it falls back down again. And I think that's very desirable. Like, that's a good place to be in when you think about your health. And just to tie it up, you said like a nice little bow, I will tie it up to, in order to actually motivate yourself, I do think that there is some cheat codes here. Number one, I would do is really like, maybe it's not number one, but I'll throw it out there anyways. Like, do that meditation on like, what does the end of my life look like, and who is there, and how are they reacting to my passing? Because it does put that ultimate frame on things, and it creates agency and urgency into what you do right now. I think that one can be a good one to do, and it's also like showing you if you're aligned with what you really want. I think another thing is like there's something called 17 Questions That Changed My Life by Tim Ferriss. That I think, I mean, it's not about like health and longevity per se, but it's like a very kind of quirky, funny way and practical way of changing the inputs. So I really recommend that one. It's on his website. So 17 questions that changed my life. And the third thing, no, you know what? The number one thing I would do is ask someone for help. Right? Like, just ask someone. People are so happy to give you help when you need it. And if you really like, you want to do it, like there's going to be, there's going to be someone who's there who's just so happy to help you, and you just haven't asked them. So I think the biggest thing that you can do is not try to do it by yourself, because you're probably going to fail, and no one is going to be there to know, and it's just you, and you're the biggest increasing likelihood is to have someone there to affirm that you're doing it. And that will then like cheer you on to get it done. Yeah.
Great advice. One thing I've noticed, which annoys me, is how people separate health and performance. They go, this is health, this is performance. And they have like a different bucket for each. And just the intersection of them both is just like so apparent when you stop and slow down, that it's like, if you want to perform at a high level, you need to be healthy. So all the conversation around health generally links to energy. It links to performance and everything we've talked about today. If you want to perform at your best, at some point you need to be healthy. Maybe in your 20s you can get away with it, but longevity, to perform for a long period of time, health is going to be your limiting factor. At some point you're going to get sick, burn out, and break down. So yeah, I really think of nutrition as fuel and building blocks for the body to build stuff. I class exercise as almost like training the energy systems so that energy can go around the body better. I want a strong heart. I want a strong organs to actually send energy around the body, blood flow, good blood flow. So you got to think about exercise as a tool to do that. And your health overall is going to dictate how much energy you have to put towards your goals. So all the stuff we talked about, focus and deep work and being able to pursue your goals, at some point, energy is a currency that we need to use to get us there. So if we haven't got it in this body that we live, you mentioned nutrition being everything. I feel very similar as well, but I do think exercise, I link them both very closely. But yeah, I feel like that's the energy currency of the body that we need to fine tune if we want to achieve big things. If we just want to do mediocre things and cruise through life, cool. You can have mediocre health, but over time it becomes apparent that you need to do work in these areas. Now, for me, nutrition, I don't want to go into the rabbit holes because nutrition is almost like religion. When you open up the box, people have got really strong views and they get really triggered very quickly. For me, nutrition's almost so easy, it hurts my brain because it's not as complicated. It's very simple. You got to do certain things and avoid certain things. We all kind of know what they look like. You can go into the weeds if you want to, but you do need to be intentional. I think that's what you mentioned as well. Like thinking about what your end goal is. Why am I making changes? For me, being a performance coach, I found with poker players, linking health to their goals helps a lot. Like them just trying to lose body fat, get in good shape. They've tried that the whole life. Doesn't work. But when you link it to what really matters to them, they want to be a high-performing poker player and play high stakes and achieve all their financial goals, and you can link health to that, which it does. It's the most direct link you can see. All of a sudden, they're like, oh, okay, cool. I didn't realize if I start doing this, I'm going to be able to perform better at what I care about. Light bulb, now curiosity, now it's engagements, now it's that kind of connection because it's their goal. And you link the thing they should be doing, we'll say, with what they want to be doing or achieving, and all of a sudden they can stick to that. So I think that's a way I like to piece it together. So yeah, before we go any deeper into that one, anything sparked there for you, Anton, or for you, Rene? Yeah. I know we're doing a bit more of a conversation, so anything else that sparked from that?
Yeah, I mean, like the only, like the really big thing that sparks is how discombobulated our kind of systems has been and how siloed we are in performance. So like, because it's hard, right? Like we haven't had this really like well-designed, interconnected way. And the people that have, they perform tremendously well. Like the story of Sir David Attenborough and the British cycling team, like 1% gains type of thing, like this marginal gains Kaizen philosophy. But the core thing there is to actually have a team and to have those components. Like in my business, I always try to find a way to think about my role and what we do that is not actually how we do our business, because that can be always like kind of abstract. It just turns into like product management terms and titles, and like everyone is running around, we don't know what we do. So in my business, I see myself as a ex-Formula 1 driver. Like I'm no longer like competing at the very, very highest level, but I'm there, right? And maybe I will get back to it, maybe I won't. But right now, what I'm trying to do is say that I don't want to compete in an old car. Like in order to compete, I need to have a car and a stable. And like, you know what, like Formula 1 2025, like you need to have a nutritionist, you need to have a trainer, you need to have a psychologist, you need to have someone managing stuff for your admin, for your family, right? Like just make sure that all those things are there so that your job is no longer like in the past, you used to be the guy who comes there and tells the mechanic what to do with the car, right? Like you have a guy with a computer for that now. So, I see it as a great opportunity that we have is like with less resources, connecting more data, turning into deriving better outcomes for our clients, but also not being so siloed as like performance coaches and support teams so that we can better interact with one another and at the end of the day, solve the client's problem or the individual's problem. Right? Like we're solving because my expertise might not cover it. Right? Like in the beginning, your biggest problem might be that you're stuck with admin, but then you see that the next problem is that you have poor emotional regulation. But like what we do is not emotional regulation. Like we take care of administrative stuff. But in order to get you to be the best person, like, okay, so now I get it. Like I have to find key partners that are performance coaches so that I solve all my clients' problems, but I can't build that whole infrastructure. It would take a decade, right? Like it takes time to build all that myself. But now, okay, now you start piecing together, like what's missing? You build like in business terms, it's an MVP. You build something, you test it, and you see if it solves the client's problem in real, like not the prototype, but like in real life. Get feedback and you say what worked for you, what worked for you, what worked for you, what didn't work for you, and so on. And based on that, you build on the things that work. And currently people are stuck doing that for themselves, right? Like I try to do it all. And what ends up happening is like nothing really gets the quality that I want because the biggest cost that I pay for that is that I don't get to consolidate. I don't get to like sit down and take the time to consolidate, like get that feedback loop for myself and really, really learn. The second cost that I pay is that I'm getting better with this, but I'm not as present. Because I'm always thinking about like the next thing in queue. There's always like this next kind of like cash. Either it's cash, like stuff from the past that I haven't really like digested yet, or there's queue, which takes me out of like right here, right now. I made a decision this year that I'm just going to let the fires burn and I'm just going to forget that I have a past. Like that stuff is just like something that I can kind of like have some vague recollections from, and the future is just like not my priority right now. I think that's also a very pragmatic way of engineering your way out of all the stuff that you don't need to do. I guess it's like the most simple way I can put that. Because if we're going to be honest, like I haven't met a person yet that's not stuck in something that they don't need help with. So when we can outsource that, which is very doable once you can see what your life is like, right? You can understand which are my projects, which are my areas, which are my resources, what are my objectives, right? Like once you can have that, or say like practically speaking, I want to automate something that I'm doing recurringly. You can't do that unless you know what the flow looks like. We might be able to do that in a few years' time, right? Like that might just be done for you and it's like the back end of your phone. Cool. Like that, then it's going to be a different thing that we're faced with that we have to solve. Like that's no longer a problem. You want to create a perfect product that you ask and it does it. Perfect product. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of value in being able to step out and always step out one step back, right, and look at it. And then you realize, like, if I look at me, like I thought I was smart like 3 months ago, and then like I look at myself now and I look at like me, and I'm like, haha, like, and then I take a step back and I know that in 3 months from now I'll look at me and I'll be like, haha, if I keep putting my one foot in front of the other, I think that's how I know I'm on the right tracks. And if I don't feel like that, I'm like, oh wow, like that guy 3 months ago, he was really something. Like that, I know I'm like kind of trending in the wrong direction. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as you were speaking there, you were talking a lot about the importance of building a team of people around you who can almost like synchronize together to solve problems and have certain expertise that are all interacting. And I feel like for a poker player, most of the audience listening, it's the inverse of how they think. They think like very solo player game. I've got to do it all. Me against the world. Maybe they're chatting with their buddies. They've got a study partner. Maybe they've got a coach who's they're working with. Like, I've got my team. But really, like they're doing everything themselves. Like most things themselves. So I want to make this a practical like lesson for the audience. From your experience, if you could go back in time, let's say you're a mid-stakes player, you're still on the come up in poker. How would you start thinking about Team Anton, the team that you want to create, people around you? So we mentioned like having clarity on the goals you're trying to achieve. But I think a lot of players will stubbornly think, yeah, I can do it all. Yeah, I'll solve my own problems. I'm a good problem solver. Just me against the world. Let's go. So for people who are listening, I'm sure there's a lot of them. How would you start thinking about expanding that to a bit of a team that like people who can help you, seeking for help in the areas that they would need it? How would you problem solve that yourself?
I would make sure to think about one thing. Now, what's one thing that I can do to take action? And I'll start there. I guess just one thing. Like the lower the barrier of you like doing it, the better. Just make sure that like you put you send a message to my friend, like, hey, if I don't do this one thing and I let you know by 7 p.m., like this happens, like something bad, like you just get to ridicule me or whatever is like the thing that you wouldn't like for your friend to do, like some kind of punishment, like not too much, but like something that you wouldn't enjoy. And then you just like do that and see what happens. That's the most practical advice I can give, because anything else is just a story. That's like a story, and stories are nice when they're told from what happened in the past. But like what you're looking to do is do something in right now, and anything else is kind of an illusion. So like that's the point I was trying to make with like the past is a story that we remember one way or another. It's not that accurate, and the future hasn't manifested yet. It's not there. Like you can be sure that reality will be there to catch you. Like either if you fall or if you run or if you sit, it's still going to be there for you. But what you can change is the next thing you do. And if you don't do it, I like this analogy. There was someone who said, when people say I'm too busy, I tell them that, this is Zach Bush MD. He said that when someone tells me that they're too busy, I usually what I tell them back is that if the creation of the universe depended on you, then nothing would have happened, would it? And I like that. So if that doesn't motivate you, if you don't feel like that's the thing, like go for it. You know, like teach your own. Like I don't judge anyone for how they choose to live their lives. I'm just saying that I think one way is more painful than the other for me. And that's kind of like where I make my choice, in that I choose to finish off with something, I think, like in this realm. It's a quote from Tim Ferriss. And it's like my favorite quote. I lived by it all year last year, and I'll continue to live by it. It says, reality is largely negotiable. And it's like, it's so elegant. It's such a beautiful way of giving you the power and the permission to get out there, get out there and do something about it. And if you don't, that's cool. Just make sure that you know that you don't, that's what you want, right? Or that's not what you don't want. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very powerful. And I think it makes me relate on the importance of stories. And we're living our life through a story narrative. And even like every time you tell a story, it's always the past. Even if I tell you about this conversation, it's the past. If I tell you what I'm doing now, I'm always a thought behind. I'm always a moment behind. So I can never tell a story about the moments. And I think one of the big parts of personal growth for all of us is understanding the stories we're telling ourselves. I can think of when I have a client who I work with a lot and I know he can take the kind of more harsh feedback, he'll tell me his biggest problems and he just unloads all his problems and I'll just say, nice story. He's like, no, it's not a story. It's happened. This is real. And he'll start protecting it. And I'm like, it's a good story. What are you missing? And then he's like, the defense mechanism, I need to know the client well to be that direct, but it shows that it's all just a story and we're all just telling them. So if we get caught up in the story and it feels like reality, like Tim Ferriss said, reality is negotiable. Why? Because reality is largely this story we're telling about it. Okay, cool. Now what can I drop? And if you can just drop a story that's limiting you, it's often the unlock that we need. And that gives you permission to just go back in the moments. You mentioned as well, like kind of be more present. That's also my 2025 goal is being more present. I did a 10-day silent retreat recently, and the whole thing was trying to be present in the moment and watch thoughts. And it's realized to me how much the primary goal is often just to be in the moment, doing what you're doing. The secondary purpose is to chase your goals, be your character, do what you want to do. But the main goal is like, can you be in the moment? Are you here? No, you're not? Okay, cool. You lost that moment. Where can you get back to it and trying to return to it? So yeah, for you, what are some of the most powerful stories you've had to let go of? So if you think of your like transition through life, you've obviously been a successful poker player, transition to business. Like these jumps often rely on you having to let go of some stories that might have been true or powerful for you at some point. Any come to mind that you've had to negotiate or let go of?
Feeling sorry for myself. That's like the biggest thing.
In what context?
In life, things will always go wrong, right? Like there's always going to be shit happens, and then you have to deal with it. And your choice is to either deal with it head on and acknowledge separate reality of fact from reality of how I feel. And I think that's something that I really struggled with because I identify a lot with the idea that I had of who I used to be. Right? Like it's not who I used to be, it's the idea of that. Like that was how I defined my character and my personality. Whereas in physical reality where we are right now, I'm just writing like the literal next sentence. Like that's all I'm doing. All that other stuff is just gone. So giving myself that permission to let go of that starts with not victimizing myself, right? Like not feeling this sadness over the mistakes that I've done in the past and keep kind of like dragging those along in my big backpack of things that I've actually learned, right? Like, so I wanted to mention this before, but I think like a really helpful thing is to think about things in frames and how you can reframe something. And we could go on and have a whole workshop on like, here's my frame right now. And like, could you improve this frame? And the answer is always going to be yes. But then at some point, like, you don't want to keep refining the frame unless you want to become a chess grandmaster, right? Like that would be one where you would have to get to like the ultimate frame to be able to beat the other guy. And that's a noble pursuit in itself. That's epic, actually. But for the average mid-stake grinders that are listening to this and want to start your journey, think about the frames and how you're responsible for those, and how could you reframe like, oh my God, I have to go to the gym. It's so hard and it's painful, to like, you know what? New day, better me. I know that in a month from now, I'll thank myself. I know it's going to be painful. I know it's going to suck, but I want something better for myself. And if I'm going to be in like physical pain and it's going to hurt, I'm just going to say like, stop, like, okay, like today's not the day. I'll just like go home, drink some water, stretch, do whatever, and I'll do it again tomorrow. Or I'll try something else. Right? Like just try some stuff until it sticks. And once it does, you're going to know it because you're going to feel it, right? It feels good. That's like, oh, I like that. Oh, that's good. Like that's that thing. And then double down on that. And then the stuff that you don't really like, don't try to, be the guy who's trying to put a triangle into a cube. Like it's like, it looks pretty silly, when you see someone who's like trying to like fit like the wrong thing in the wrong thing. So yeah, just like giving yourself permission to reinvent yourself in the present moment, and not feel bad about it, and not tell everyone how like poor me for going through this thing. And like nobody cares. Like come on. Nobody cares about your bad beat. Nobody cares about like all that stuff. They just care about you, maybe, if you're lucky. Right? Like if you're lucky, they care about how you feel. And that's something you can talk about because that's real. That's like what you have right now. So I think like the like really big theme is to normalize that and to let people like be who they are, and have a little bit of patience. Like when not always jump to solutions, actually, because it's I think we're all pretty good at that. And if we can give ourselves a little bit more time and space to just not do anything about it, like you'll be surprised what really happens. And like when you have the time to
the answer appears. Most often, or the problem you thought was a problem was never a problem to begin with. Yeah, I think that's often what I notice as well. And as you were saying there as well, I started thinking about frames and the challenge with the frames we have and kind of changing them. I think a lot of people, one, don't have the awareness of their frames. So they have a problem, they just keep clashing with that problem over and over, not realizing it's the way they're viewing the situation that's causing the problems. That's the first step. Second, they don't give themselves permission to change the frame. They have an identity attached to, this is how I am. Even like people who have the identity, I'm unlucky. They like the bad beat stories. They get a lot tied up, like, I'm an unlucky guy. It's like, no, let's drop that. What if you weren't the unlucky guy? Whoa. Now I've got to open up a doorway that I could be making mistakes. But yeah, I think permission to drop your frames, and then the ability to reframe or add frames. And the way I like to see it is almost like adding perspectives, like different lens to look through. Any situation can be looked through from lots of different lenses. And the more lens you have of a situation, the more accurate it is. And very often when you go deeper and deeper into like acquiring more ways of looking at stuff, you almost always arrive at nothing really matters. It's all impermanent anyway. And you're like, oh, it's kind of a freeing place because you're like, then all the problems you're fighting with just disintegrate. So yeah, I play around with this almost daily with like what frames I am currently looking at life through, which ones have utility. It's like, oh, this frame's good. This is helping me towards my goals. And when I get stuck or I feel resistance or I feel something internally, I'm like, oh, what frame have I got today? Okay, cool. Let's have a look at this. How can I dissect this? What can I add to it? Where can I reframe this lens? Can I add a larger horizon, like time frame? For me, sometimes the frame I'm looking for is just a time frame. It's like I want to get somewhere now. So I'm feeling resistance because I want to get to a destination, which might take me 5 months, and I want to get here today. Okay, cool. Now we need the framing's wrong. I want to get here now. The frame is actually needs to expand to give myself more time. So yeah, I think there's, as you said, we could do a workshop, a seminar, a full 3 more hours on that topic. So I don't want to dive in too much. I actually want to pass to Rene because I'm curious to know any stories you've had on this topic in terms of stories that you've had to let go of in your career, or stories that you felt like were part of your identity that you had a hard time letting go of.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the biggest story that I had to let go of was basically due to the traditional education system. I didn't go to the Waldorf school, unfortunately. But you know how it's done, right? You're being graded, and I was always graded like dumb for the normal education system, right? I now know that I have certain talents that the system didn't really measure, but according to the system, I was pretty dumb, right? And I was always in school, every class, they would put me separate. I had a separate desk next to the teacher. That's kind of how bad it was. So I was kind of always primed that I even had the story. I don't know if I actually heard, someone once said that, but it's like, if Rene doesn't end up on the street, doing drugs, it's a good outcome. That's kind of how bad it was, right? So I kind of had the story around very fixed mindset, right? I had kind of the story around, okay, well, your knowledge is fixed. I'm labeled as not good at really anything. And that story actually got really challenged in poker, right? I had to kind of break through that story. Like I said earlier, when I was at this really rock bottom moment, like, fuck, I got the story broke when I learned about, oh, wait, I can actually grow. I have control over this shit. Oh, well, no one ever told me that, right? And then actually the story, even when at some point when I was at the peak of my career, it was still a story there was like internal conflict. Like, wait, I have these results consistently over many years, but this is still that story that's running in the background that's saying like, hey, this cannot be true, right? Because all these results, it's just a matter of time before this is all going to go away, because you're not supposed to be good at anything. So that was a story that was really, I would say, yeah, that was a story that made me not be able to enjoy the peak of my career as much, because I was way more afraid that reality, which was linked to the story, would come around the corner, right? So that was a very big story that I had to drop. And actually recently, since I had my daughter, I started to tell stories around, well, I have a daughter now, or my dad now. And instead of seeing that as, I caught myself, instead of seeing that with all the nice things that comes with it, I started to reframe it more as like a lot of doors closing. Again, it's like perspective, right? You can see it as a lot of doors opening, but I started to see it as a lot of doors closing. Now, this probably also had something to do with the fact, that I was a bit sleep deprived, my habits weren't that great. So you get into like a negative spiral, right? That didn't help. I remember at some point, actually, my wife said, okay, I'm going to force you now every morning, 7:00, you're here on the beach playing foot volley. And surprise, surprise, I feel much better, and the stories are not so dark anymore. So it's definitely linked as well. And in general, all the conversations that you guys had, if I look back in my own career, I can check all the boxes from, changing my perspectives, from building in reframes that I thought, would be better for my performance, from creating these non-negotiables, right? Just like you said with drink, I just stopped alcohol completely, because I noticed if I kept the door open, my friend said, oh yeah, you're not going to drink tonight? Well, try one. Whereas if I just said, I don't drink, there's no negotiable, so I don't drink, right? It's way easier to keep your standards. Or like, before playing day, I don't eat any dirty stuff. Or if I'm going to play next day, I don't eat any dirty stuff. I keep a clean diet. It's very simple, non-negotiable, right? When you try to keep the door open, shit goes wrong. So yeah, I can very strongly relate with everything you guys were saying.
Yeah, it's funny how we get in our own way, right? Like how easy it is for us to play someone else's game. Like, someone told me this, so therefore I believe that this is who I am, type of thing. And I think that's something to be very vigilant about, in order to just like, play. Like, I think also, like, since we're here on a podcast about playing games, right? Like, I think like one of the things that actually came up when we all talked is that we have this tendency to, when we talk about serious questions, to get very serious, right? Like it's always like this problem that needs to be solved that gives you these like wrinkles between your eyes. And I mean, Rene, you have a kid. I don't know about you, Adam, but like, the experience of watching, like, being with kids and being near and around kids is like, especially like really young kids, like, they don't have a story yet, right? Like, they haven't made anything up. And I mean, like, my deepest curiosity, the thing that I will be always forever most curious about is what it's like to be a newborn. Like because I remember my first memory, but I don't remember like before that, because I didn't have a way to kind of, maybe one day I will know, you know? But that kind of deep-rooted curiosity, I think, it holds a lot of answers. And if we're able to kind of like tap into that, it's somehow, I have this felt sense that would be like ultimate freedom in a way. You know, like there are no rules, there is no constructs, there's no nothing. And I think that's kind of a way, right? Like it could be a way to warp reality, and then back to present moment, where it's like, when I start telling myself that story, can I laugh about myself? It's a really good framing question. Like, can I see my problem, like the guys you coach and like what you talked about, Adam, when they come in and they're like, oh my God, like this thing. And I'm like, are you able to laugh about it? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, like then you're in story mode. Now, when you can like tell the story about how funny it was and like all that stuff that you went through, all your troubles and hardships, and you can do that in like a way where you make other people, including yourself, hopefully to laugh, then it's like you're in narrator mode. And I think that's like like a really cool thing, because with performance, I feel like the biggest trap of that is to like lose sight of our childishness, like our playfulness, and treat it like the game that has to be won. And it's like, but then we didn't really go back and define the rules of the game. Right? Like I'm just playing by some arbitrary, like, again, like why I dislike this, like I'm so-and-so and here is my blueprint. And I'm like, based on what data? And like, is this coming with a caveat that not for everyone, by the way, you know?
Yeah, your definition of a win, right?
Yeah, or like, doesn't have to be win. Like for me, one of my biggest philosophical questions is value. I like, what is valuable to you is clearly valuable to you. It's like, it could be your biggest treasure, your biggest prize, the thing that is so close and dear to your heart. And for me, I'm like, yeah, I don't care about that. Like, don't get me wrong, you know, like I'm excited for you being excited about something. And I think that's amazing. And I think that creates a lot of value, but it's not valuable to me or the next person. But it derives value once you start connecting it and seeing that it actually does. Right? Like it's just that I'm on my own path to create it. And if we can come together and kind of play around that, I think that's something that's incredibly powerful, because then you start getting a new perspective, right? Like, it's not that I didn't care about your thing. So yeah, like just reframing, like it's not that I didn't care about your thing, I just didn't understand it. I didn't see why you thought it was valuable. And once I started getting that, the quickest way to get there is to play, from my experience. And it's fun. Right? Like we all like to play games one way or another. So maybe like going back to the starting a study group, that can also be a really good way of saying, what could be the most playful way I could do this? Right? Like how could I create an environment where I know that I'm going to have fun? How can I find a bunch of other nerds that are nerds into the same thing that I am nerdy about? And like we can have our amazing party where we talk about the stuff that we love to do. Like that to me is culture. Right? Like we see culture as this like pedestal like thing, because you always see it in like, yeah, the Chicago Bulls had this amazing like team culture, and like yeah, all those things are true, but like at the end of the day, they were relentless performers, but did they have fun along that road and had people keep showing up? Yes. And then they also had Michael Jordan, who probably kicked everyone's ass if they didn't play ball, you know. But again, like just what are the components of the whole instead of the details? Because that's kind of like where we forget. And it's easier to forget if it's just you, or it's easier to make excuses if it's just you as well, because there's no one there to see it, right? But your subconscious will be like, well, about that.
Yeah, and I feel like also there needs to be some level of enjoyment, right? Like if we do on paper exactly, okay, I have to do this, but if it's just simply not fun, you will probably give up in a week, right? So yeah, we have to create a culture where we indeed obviously feel the necessity to do things, right? It's like we don't have to think about it because, well, this is our goal and this is clearly attached to our goal. That's one thing. But yeah, we shouldn't really, for example, if I think about everything that I did for my poker career, like there was nothing that I really hated doing. You know, it was kind of a no-brainer. So I don't know if, like, for example, if exercise or diet, you know, I didn't really think about it. There's no resistance, but maybe some people have extreme resistance to that, and then it becomes way harder for them, right? So they should probably not take it to. They should just stick to the minimum, right? Just go walk around your building, I don't know, instead of actually going to the gym, right? But at least if you walk around your building consistently every day, that's better than, you know, trying to push to the gym and then giving up for a month, right? So yeah. All right, I want to do some reflection on your very long career in poker. I think it's already, 17 years? Actually, it's very similar to mine. We are both, I think you labeled yourself as a dinosaur in the testimonial. I'm a fellow dinosaur. 17 years in poker, long time. What would you say is the most important lesson that poker has taught you?
Yeah, I think the one thing would be that unless you get out there, you're not going to find out. Like, the more you put yourself out there and like do things, it's the only way to elevate. There is no shortcut. You just have to do it. And all the time that you spend not doing it is just that. So, you know, we're all scared of stuff. At least like the majority of us. And the sooner I got out there, and the sooner I, you know, went to fight the next boss or slay the next dragon or ask that pretty girl if she likes me, like the sooner I got the answer. And if the answer is no or whatever, then it's just like maybe ask why. Most people will give you the time of day, and if they don't, they're probably a jerk anyway, so you don't want their advice, so it's fine. And then you'll know.
So you're speaking of being courageous. Because everyone is afraid, right? Like fear, but some people don't let fear stop them, and I think it's usually the courage to still go for it, despite of the fact that failing is an option.
Right. I mean, we're poker players. Play the game. We'll just show up and play the game. Check raise.
Yeah, no risk, no reward. Speaking of that, actually, I saw in the questionnaire you can ask. We give you some things to fill out. You said that you're a gambler at heart. You also filled out you prefer YOLO. Those in line. Did these things ever get you in trouble? Did you ever go broke, or what would you describe as like your biggest rock bottom moment in poker? Due to these attributes, maybe. Have these attributes ever gotten you in trouble?
There's this song that's like so good at being in trouble.
That's you.
You know? Yeah, it hits a certain note, at least. Right? Like, I don't identify as one or the other when I ask those questions. Like, I think they're good thought-provoking questions because it's kind of like, you know, I'm this, I'm that, a little bit of both. But what I appreciate about myself and a character trait that I really like about myself is that I go for it, which means that I will be more on the gambling side because I want to maximize my upside. That's how I look at that. I'm like, I want to do, there's this like Jeff Bezos super famous letter for his shareholders where he's like, as an entrepreneur, he makes the analogy of that being baseball, and he says that sometimes you hit a home run, right? But the only difference between baseball and entrepreneurship is when you hit a home run, you can hit 1,000 rounds, right? Like the return is so outsized on the other side. And, I'm talking about that in business, but that's life. Like, if you really like go for that, you're going to strike out a lot of times. But again, like, you really get to find out. And when you connect with the ball in any sport, like that feeling or that sound that you hear, it's like you can be in an arena and the whole arena just stops. Right? You just hear like, bing! And it's like you could hear a needle drop. Everything just goes completely still, and then it's like, whoosh! And to see that thing get straight out of the park. So yeah, that.
From that perspective, has obviously when you see a good opportunity, you want to go for it. Did that ever get you in trouble? Obviously, when you swing,
Yes.
you will often miss.
Yes.
Sometimes you hit the home run, right? But often you missed. Does any big miss come to mind?
Yeah, but that's kind of where the YOLO aspect comes in, right? Like I just want to ping those two things off one another. So like, I see my ex-business partner, he had this quote on his WhatsApp, Martin. It says, "Don't quit, 'cause YOLO." And then there's a guy doing a cartwheel, right? So if you don't get yourself into trouble every now and then, you're probably not playing loose enough, right? Like, you're probably just like playing safe and sticking to a strategy that you know. And that means that you won't get any other feedback. But like, I can think of a million situations that I've been in that would be considered like dangerous. Like right now, I'm in Mexico. I lost my passport. I've been living out of my suitcase for the past 10 months. I'm putting all my resources into my company. Like, all those things are risks that I take, but I'm doing that for outsized returns, not just in terms of my business and in life, but in terms of outsized returns, in terms of how much enjoyment I can squeeze out of it, right? Like, I could go around and be scared all day about the situation I could get into, or I can be prepared to deal with it when it arises. And like, my odds at surviving a situation that would be bad, being character number 1 in this game or character number 2, is like, scared people get robbed. Like, people that are like, they're like a target because someone is like, oh yeah, like, this guy won't put up a fight. So I think it's more about just watching out. Like, watch out for people that are scared. Like, watch out for like bad people that are scared, and watch out for psychopaths out there that are just like bad people. Like, I've seen in my life, I've seen some bad people where I'm like, I'm glad I'm not in a non-safe space with you because I know you're a bad man, kind of thing. And I've seen some people that have been scared that I'm like, I mean, I was in the Stampede in Vegas when that happened, and I saw some people where I'm like, my only recourse was to look at them in such a way that they would be more scared of me than they were about this imaginary threat of some gunman, in order for them to like direct their attention elsewhere, type of thing. So yeah, I don't know how. I'm just trying to think of one time that I've like really gotten into trouble, but I don't think I've ever gotten into trouble for that, really. Like, I think the times that I got into trouble was when I was unaware. The times that I really get into trouble is when I'm like, I have the only superstition I have is leaving keys at the table. And I think it's a very rational superstition to have, is like unlucky. And I think it is because it signals that you're about to leap. So like, I think the biggest indicator for me, like when things have gone wrong, is because I'm stressed. Like when I experience stress, that leads to really bad decisions. And a stressed me will get myself into some trouble because I'm not thinking. Like I'm not actually like there. So yeah, I would say like that being a better lead. And yeah, it's like stress has made me miss opportunities. Stress has lost me money. Stress has put me in more stress. It put me in situations that I also have been in, that I have my back against the wall and I have to figure out a way to get out of it. And then I do, right? Because at the end of the day, like put my back against the wall, I will fight. I like life very much, too much to just like give up. But yeah, I think like, I think that's the part of it. And I think like the biggest cost of that has been relationships. The relationships has been the biggest cost of like not being able to show up. That's been the biggest price. I mean, luckily I haven't really gotten. Yeah, you know what? Actually, I have one. Me and a couple of friends, we went to the mountains in Sequoia National Park, and we went for a lovely trek, which was a very moderate, easy kind of trek. We may or may not have gone off the trail, so to speak, and we ended up in this beautiful place called Marble Falls. And we decided, you know what, like this shouldn't be the end of the trip. Like we're gonna take this little road and we can go in through the waterfall and come up the backside. And we decided to go like off the trail. And I saw a guy. It's like we're very much out there, but I see some guy trail running, and I'm like, okay, we can just like go up this path and we can double back the way that he came. So we walk up this hill. It's maybe like 30, 40 meters elevated where he was. So we go up this track and it looks nice and safe and easy. And there's like a dry mudslide after like 20 meters. So we're now at like a 10-meter plateau and there's no way out. Like we cannot go down. And the only way out is up. And there's a long story, right? Like it involves like a lot of really after the fact funny details. The short story is there was no Instagram for a few hours. I've never been so scared in my life, like true fear. Like the sense of this fear was like a big black bird hovering over me and is saying, if you slip, if you make one mistake, you're gonna be toast. It's over. And like you'll slip down this hill and that's it. So I think like the place that you really don't want to make mistakes is being in environments that are not forgiving.
Nature.
Nature is beautiful, but she is also very indifferent to you.
What is your definition of success, and how has this evolved over the years?
I like to use the Alan Watts, what's the meaning and purpose of life? I really like his definition. And I think like what he said was to live your life. And to me, that's the definition of success. To really fully live your life and feel like that's enough. If you do that, you'll be the richest person in the world. So that's also, I guess, how I see value.
How has that shaped how you live your life?
I've become a very relentless person. I'm just very relentless. I'm not very often satisfied. In the sense that I always want more, and that's something that is that I have to reconcile with. It's also the thing I love most about myself, and it feels so gratifying when I hit my own standard, like when I like eclipse my own benchmark on something. Like, doesn't matter what it is, right? Like, this could be something that someone else could do with one hand tied behind their back, but it's just that feeling of myself having exceeded my own expectation. You can't pay me enough money to feel that feeling. There's nothing else that's more rewarding. That's the biggest prize, and that's mine. That's only mine.
Adam, for you, how do you live your life?
Yeah, so I think the definition of success was good, the Alan Watts one. And I like Alan Watts' other definition of life, so to speak, where he talks about it being a game. It's all just a game, and you just got to play the game to the most fun you can have with the game that you're playing, and realizing it's not serious. I really like that analogy. Part of me, when I think success, does kind of think about growth, some sort of purpose, some sort of living a meaningful life that's meaningful to you. So I think this links back to like knowing your values, knowing like who you are, and trying to align your behaviors with that. But on some level, it's just like just living your life is kind of what it's all about, and being present, because none of that external stuff really matters. If we think of success, I had a friend who recently asked me about successes I've had, and I was like, none of the things I could quote as a success really felt like a success. Like anything I could say would, on the surface, maybe seem like a success, but it wasn't really. And the most success I felt is like living in the moment, like being in a moment, like feeling that Anton said. Those are the times. And yeah, often that can be a growth opportunity when you've pushed to a new level or exceed expectations, or it could be just present with a friend, just in a moment, having a conversation. You're like, this is life. I don't need to validate myself. I don't need to achieve something. I don't need to earn this success. I'm winning the game of life because I'm here. By default, I win. Amazing. So I think that's where I sometimes have like a paradox going on in my head of success. Like, what is it really, kind of playing back and forth? But yeah, I think over time it's getting more towards being in the moment and less towards trying to get to an outcome of success. All right, we've had a very...
Yeah, it's not necessarily the experience itself, but it's how you experience the experience, right? That kind of determines the success.
Exactly. And when you think about that, how do you experience something fully? It's being in the moment, right? It's being present with it. And when you're with it, it's like the moment feels good. Even washing the dishes, if you're present with it, water feels nice on the hands. Oh, bubbles, nice. So it's like just that being with the moment that you're in. So yeah, again, we could go into another.
Yeah, it's not what, it's how. It's how. It's not what you achieve, but it's how you felt in the journey and when you achieved it, like the emotions around it.
Yes. And I think for me, a lot of the reason I would class things as success in the past was because I created a story narrative that I had to do X, Y, Z to feel success. It's like it's an unlock button. When I do all these things, I unlock success and I allow myself to feel happy. And then say, oh, well, the cheat code would be remove all those steps and allow myself to feel good now. Okay, interesting. Okay, now I'm winning. This is cheating. It's kind of cheating because now I don't need to give myself permission to experience something. So I realized for myself, I'd locked success behind a door, and I had to do things to get there. And I was like, oh, wait a second, I'm creating a lot of attachment to these things, when in reality, why don't I just enjoy every single step of the process? The door's like a little gem at the end. I get a little reward there. Nice, okay. And then back on to the next step, and each step is meaningful in itself. So yeah, that's the way I try to think about it. All right, I want to just wrap this up. I know we're coming towards...
I just want to add one thing here. Something you said a couple of times that I think I'm going to try to bring this back into my vocabulary is to be with it. I know it sounds like this like throwback to the 90s type of thing. But that's a really good way of thinking about it, right? Like I try to have these like little catchphrases in my life. So if I can think like, am I being with it or not? That's like a really nice little catchphrase, right? That's something that I can utilize in my day to day. And if the answer is no, well, then I'm not with it. So
where are you?
Yeah, thanks for that.
When you're not with it, where are you? You're in your mind, right? Normally, so can I come back with it? Return to the moment. That's it. Like life's almost like the call of return to the moment. Here it is. It's unfolding right in front of you. Are you here? And yeah, the obstacles often the mind and the narratives. But yeah, glad that one stuck for you. All right, I know we're getting towards the 4-hour mark, but I've got a few rapid fire questions to ask you, and then we'll wrap it up. So the way this works is answer with the first thing that comes to mind. Some of them can be very simple words. Some of them will be a few words, but as short as you can, and the first thing you can think of. All right?
All right, cool.
All right.
Let's go.
Good stuff. All right, these are not going to be serious questions as well, so just first thing that comes up. But yeah, okay. First question. Your best purchase of under $100 that has improved your game or your life?
AI, and probably AI.
Strong answer. If your partner had to define you or describe you in one word, what would she choose?
Loving.
The biggest blunder you have made that still tilts you when you think about it?
Not moving abroad quick enough to places that were better environments for what my pursuits are.
The biggest degenerate prop bet that you've ever been involved in, either with friends or someone else?
Me and a friend won 165,000 euros playing Chinese poker in Bratislava.
Wow, that could open up a door, but I'm just going to keep it closed. What's your walkout song if poker had entrances like the UFC or boxing?
Well, I know I would pick something out of the box. So I'll go with the answer. Like, I don't know exactly what song it would be, but it would be something that wouldn't have the theme that people would expect. It would be something kind of like that feels offbeat, but then you think about it and you're like, you know what? Like, it's actually on beat. And then you're like, okay, I'm even more fired up. Like, who the fuck is this guy?
Takes a while for you to get it, but when you get it, you're like, oh yeah, I get it now. What's something you're really bad at that you wish you weren't?
I actually I wish I would be amazingly good and loving doing the dishes, because it is always an eyesore and I just cannot bring myself to do it, and it's messing up it's like the queue of stuff.
Craziest thing you've ever witnessed at a poker table?
I will go with what comes to mind is the Berlin robbery, where everything turned into mayhem in a second. But if it would be if I can relate something to poker, it would be I just finished the double. I busted my last tournament, and that's when the stampede happened. So I was carrying my stuff out of there, and it's it's a sad feeling. Like, you bust your last tournament, and I'm in my story, and all of a sudden I hear shooter, and I see it's like being in The Lion King. Like all the buffaloes are coming down, and they're just coming towards you, and I'm like, oh. I don't hear a gunshot, but I guess I better fight. I guess I better run that way. So connected to poker, I think that's the craziest thing that I've ever seen, because it happened in ultra rapid. Like, you see this whole thing happening. It's just like the scream, the flood wave of people, and then you're just there jogging and seeing people running over some guy in those like wheelchairs that they have, and it's just drama, like a flood wave of people coming up against the elevator, and I'm like, that's not a good way to go. This whole sequence of event, and that being like the final moment of my WSOP. I think if I can pick something that would be at least poker related, that would be it.
That's a pretty dramatic walkout moment. All right, final little mini series.
We just got to figure out the soundtrack as well, right?
Yeah, put a soundtrack on that. Lion King sounds great. What's more tilting? This is a mini series. So what's more tilting? Bad beats or tech issues mid-session?
It's tech issues. Of course. It's not even close. It's something that you can't really do anything about. And bad beats, you just have to shrug it off. So not even close.
Agree. What's more tilting? Losing to an aggro fish or losing to a bad reg?
Aggro fish. I don't think it's even close. Like, yeah, no. These people really know how to get me.
Bad regs can be pretty tilting, but yeah. Okay, what's more tilting? Bubbling a tournament after leading all day or busting first hand?
Bubbling tournament after all day. Busting first hand in case you go do something else.
All right, you survived the rapid fire. What would you like to be the part in advice for the audience or the takeaway? I know we've covered a lot of topics. We went super deep, and it's sometimes hard to remember everything we touched on. But if you could give some takeaway for the audience to walk away from this long conversation with, what would that be?
Be yourself. Just make sure that you know who that is.
Mic drop. It's a good ending. I like it. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Adam, any main takeaways?
Yeah, we went down some deep rabbit holes today, so I'm going to pull myself back out and try and extrapolate. We did a deep dive on AI and kind of the use cases that each of us are using AI. The thing I was thinking about throughout that was almost like choosing your own adventure, choosing who you want to become, and then using AI as your assistant, your co-pilot. We talked about stress testing ideas. We talked about asking like what you're not doing correctly, what you could do better, and really like not just using AI as something to give answers, but to really communicate, to really go back and forth. And I really like your examples, Rene, of these kind of panels you're creating for different use cases. I've got a few, but not as in-depth as you've created them by the sounds of it. But lots of those conversations and how we learn. And I think what I was touching on as well from Anton is he learns from conversation. I'm very similar. I learn a lot through interacting back and forth, stress testing ideas, and AI is very good at that tool to go back and forth in terms of this is what I think, this is what do you think, and why do you think this, and all these kind of back and forth. I feel like that's a really strong way to learn and to get better at anything you're doing. Another topic of knowing yourself and really understanding what your values are, what you're trying to achieve, what this whole journey of yours is about. For most people listening, their poker career, why are you trying to achieve success in poker? What's the deeper reason that it gravitates you towards the game and trying to get better? And the more you know yourself, the more you can make choices that are in alignment with this. He talked about his kind of give up policy. And I pushed back on that a bit because it didn't relate to how I think. But when he explained it, it was almost like giving up on things where it's not in direction with your values. It's not in alignment with who you want to be long term. And you're pursuing a goal just through stubbornness and you're just going for it. So the more you know yourself, the more you check in with yourself, the more you can kind of see, okay, is this direction I'm taking in alignment with where I want to get to? If the answer is yes, then you can push through the hard times. If it's not, or in his analogy, you can't see your way out the maze, it's just a dead end, then yeah, just giving that up and going to something else will free up time and resources. We did a deep dive on health and performance, and I try to link the two together in terms of thinking about your health in performance are one, in terms of a system. You talk about energy, how much energy you get from being healthy. For him, nutrition was the biggest key to his health. He even set up a company to provide high quality meals because he really understands the importance of quality nutrition to performance. And for him, it's all about, he wants to optimize performance and longevity. Those were the two things that he says for him as an individual are most important. For you, have a think about it as a listener. What's your main things that you use health and performance towards? What are you trying to get to, and why does that matter? And then we did another deep dive into stories and reframes and the narratives we tell it ourselves. And often those stories sound real, but they keep us stuck. They keep us trapped where we're at. And we've got to think about ways to reframe things. So understanding areas or observing areas you're currently stuck, looking at the stories you're currently telling yourself, Is there a reframe? Is there a different perspective you can look at? If you think the answer is no, you're wrong, because the answer is always yes. And working with those and playing around with them and realizing these stories are very malleable, very flexible. We don't need to be stuck in a story we had as a 13-year-old in our 30s. We can drop that one and pick up a new one and give yourself permission to do that. I think that was a really powerful lesson. How about yourself, Rene? What were the main ones for you?
Yeah, you touched already on a lot of great ones, especially me just listening you guys talk, and I was like reflecting on my own poker career. The reframes, the changing perspectives, the non-negotiables, all things. I was like, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did that. Because we have to understand that our brains, you know, they're not really wired to be a successful poker player, right? We create in these stories about being downswing. We create stories about bad beats. We have, for example, fears, and that fear we project into the future, and you know, we become extremely pessimistic. So I was always reflecting every session, be like, okay, well, these are kind of the thoughts that I have. These are not in line with the goal where I want to go. So then the next session I would think ahead and be like, okay, well, when this thought comes up, how do I replace it, right? Or when this situation comes up, how can I come up with a different perspective? For example, instead of the downswing story, I changed perspective. Wait, downswing is actually an opportunity. Everyone goes through it. So the opportunity here is if I lose 20 buy-ins and my opponent loses 30, I'm winning against him, right? That's just an idea of how you can change perspective. So yeah, just listening, a lot of great stuff. We didn't dive a lot into technically poker. One thing that I did wrote down is focus on Bill from Texas instead of Rene from the Netherlands. I really liked him pointing that out. And it was really in line with his system, right? He was looking for ways that he could get an edge that cost the minimum amount of energy and that get the maximum results, right? Kind of the 80-20. And putting all of your time into Bill from Texas, you will likely gain some information, and through that you can make very big exploits that will make you a lot of money. Whereas if you focus on Rene from the Netherlands, you know, there's room for exploitation, believe it or not, but there's less room than against Bill from Texas, or at least I hope. We touched on something very interesting when we talked about kind of his approach towards taking risks, right? In the questionnaire, he said YOLO and gambling, a gambler at heart. And he was talking more about, listen, he gave, I think, the baseball example, right? You got to swing the bat in order to hit the home run, right? And what stops people from from making the swing is fear. And the topic of courage came up, right? Despite being afraid, still taking the step in that direction, right? And he shared, of course, he failed many times, but you know, he trusts himself that he will just get it back up and try again. And at some point, he will swing that home run. And he was talking about the returns of hitting that home run will be way greater than all the times you've lost it. The last thing I want to close it off with was something actually that you also touched on, Adam, but it was that it's not that you use AI or that you use solver, it's the way how you use it, right? There needs to be a certain sense of curiosity towards the why instead of just wanting the answers. I think we talked about don't use it, you lose it. I don't know if that was a real quote, but you know, it is now. So if you don't use your brain to actually do the process, right, and understanding the process of getting to the solution, you will basically be dependent on only the solution, and you don't know how the illusion came to exist, so you didn't learn anything. So yeah, I think that really applies to AI, that really applies to solvers as well. So yeah, overall great stuff. Anton, thank you again. Adam, thank you also for providing great questions as always. Thank the audience for listening all the way to the end. Extremely long episode, this one, so shout out to you. Hit that like button. Remember, if you want to work with me and Adam, mechanicsofpoker.com. Shout out to our sponsors, Coinpoker, GTO Wizard, and I will see you guys in the next episode.